I saw the monstrous sword energy rising straight into the sky. The ghostly light of the seven-star sword turned into a ground-shattering slash, clashing with iron. Out of thin air, Sokka's strength was raised to the level of an intermediate great swordsman, and this strength is still rising. But even so, Ain didn't panic at all. Her combat experience was obtained by training with Luoya using fantasy fruits. Every time she would face 2 or 3 phantoms that were several times stronger than herself. Her combat experience far exceeded Sokka's. Therefore, no matter how much Sokka's swordsmanship improves, as long as there is no significant improvement, Ain can barely keep up and continue to improve his skills. Then break through. Ain's sword fell, and the strong sword intent suddenly dissipated a lot. Gathering them all on the blade, a cold look flashed in Ain's eyes. I saw Ain holding the sword in both hands, taking a deep breath, and rushing towards Sokka in front of him in the bloody moonlight. Under Ain's control, the blade slashed out horizontally. The sword intent attached to the blade was also intertwined with the slashing at this time. Luo Ya's eyes suddenly lit up. He subconsciously said, Ain's swordsmanship has actually reached the high level of a great swordsman. It seems that promotion in battle is indeed the best way to grow. Feeling the sharpness of Ain's slash, Sokka looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. He has reached the high level of a great swordsman at such a young age. I don't believe it. If you don't believe it, you must know that my talent is very poor to begin with. Only through continuous hard work can I become stronger. And I will never use other methods to get promoted. Because with Master Luoya, in other words, this is inferior. Following Ain, he shouted out his heart. The sword blade that was slashing towards Sokka in a horizontal direction had already arrived in front of Sokka. Cold sweat dripped from Sokka's forehead, and before he knew it, his back was soaked. We can't delay it any longer. 7-star sword, give me more power! Along with Sokka's whisper, more strange and powerful power began to be instilled into Sokka's body. The veins on Sokka's body popped out, and his entire body looked at least twice as big. The height also reached over 4 meters at this time. It seems to be twice as big as Ain. The pressure on his body suddenly skyrocketed. The 7-star sword was suspended in the air by Sokka. His legs were slightly bent, and he just ate Ain's slash. The muscles on his body were constantly trembling. But the 7-star sword is also constantly providing Sokka with a steady stream of energy. This allowed Sokka to withstand Ain's attack. Following this attack, Sokka resisted it. Sokka's momentum has also reached the high level of a great swordsman. The same level as Ain. But Sokka saw those people around him, staring at him with eager eyes. I no longer have the confidence in my heart. He couldn't delay it any longer. Looking at the people around him, Sokka's face showed an arrogant, evil smile. White Pigeon! I left a big gift for you. I hope you like it. After the words fell, Sokka took out a phone bug from his arms. He pressed the button on the phone. In an instant, a big explosion occurred in the marine base in the distance. The scope of the explosion happened to be the prison of the marine branch. Inside there are pirates that Sokka has been arresting in recent days. The purpose is to create riots at this time. Moreover, Sokka passed on the energy of the 7-star sword to Cavendish. Thinking about it, his power will be even more violent, and he will be able to delay Bai Ge and others for a while. Roha obviously also noticed Sokka's thoughts. Watching Sokka quickly disappear from his sight, the corners of Roha's mouth raised slightly. Things are getting more interesting. But it would be bad if it affected civilians. Luo Lan, Stella, and these pirates will be left to you. Don't let them hurt innocent civilians. As Roha's words fell, the 3 women nodded and rushed towards the prison. The old woman on Aska Island came to Roha and said to Roha, General White Pigeon, I know you. You are so powerful. You must prevent Sokka from completely awakening the 7-star sword, otherwise, all life will be ruined by then. The entire sea will be ruled by Sokka. Hearing what the old woman said, Roha nodded seriously. Don't worry, just leave Sokka to me. I will definitely defeat him. Of course, Roha said this just to reassure the old woman. You know, Roha doesn't like the 7-star sword at all. If the 7-star sword was really that powerful, it wouldn't be sealed. You know, in the theatrical version, when the 7-star sword was at its peak, it was just an island. It's not a big deal. But just as the old woman finished speaking, a strange white figure suddenly appeared next to Roha and the old woman. The person who came was none other than Cavendish, who had passively accepted the strange power of the 7-star sword. At this time, Cavendish is holding his own sword, with his second personality controlling his body, coupled with the bewitching power of the violent 7-star sword. In terms of strength, there is a slight improvement compared to before. An overwhelming aura of madness was pressing towards Roha and the old woman. The old woman couldn't even hold her crutch. I wonder why you shouldn't do this in front of an old lady. It will scare people. As Roha's words fell, I saw Roha stretching out his finger, and his armed color and peak domineering energy were wrapped around his finger. At a speed that was impossible for Cavendish to react, it flicked towards Cavendish's forehead. Bang! A loud noise resounded across the island. Cavendish flew away into the distance at a faster speed than when he came. After breaking more than 10 trees in a row, the two of them hugged each other before stopping. The 7-star sword rampage and the second personality are all useless in the face of Roha's absolute power. The location where Cavendish fell happened to be where Sokka was. Sokka, who had just arrived here, was startled by Cavendish, who suddenly flew over. He didn't expect Roha's power to be so powerful. For a moment, Sokka also hesitated in his heart. Is it possible for the fully liberated 7-star sword to defeat Roha? However, just when Sokka thought of this, the 7-star sword suddenly gave back to Sokka with unprecedented power. This undoubtedly gave Sokka a lot of confidence. Without thinking much, Sokka quickly moved his legs, relying on his physical strength. Moving quickly towards the highest point on Aska Island. As long as he gets closer to the Blood Moon, he will be able to gain power from the 7-star sword faster. The old woman has not yet recovered from Roha's terrifying power. I saw Luoya saying lightly, "Don't worry, leave the rest to me." After saying that, Roha walked towards the direction where Sokka left. Yes, just go. Because Roha didn't care about Sokka at all. In his mind, Sokka's strength was slightly weaker than Cavendish's. Following Sokka, Roha came to Asker Island, the highest peak. Looking at Sokka with open arms in front of him, Roha leaned on a big stone next to him and said to Sokka, "Let me tell you, how long do you have until you can completely release the power of the 7-star sword?" Sokka looked at Roha and felt so confident. My heart suddenly surged with unprecedented ecstasy. By Gu, if you are a real man, just wait until I completely unlock the power of the 7-star sword. Then we will have a good competition. Hearing Sokka's words, Roha almost rolled his eyes. Okay, but you should hurry up. If you're too slow, I'm afraid I might accidentally pop out my finger and kill you accidentally. After saying this, Roha leaned on the stone, looked up at the blood moon in the sky, and murmured to himself, "Don't tell me, this is the first time I have seen the blood moon. Compared to before, the moon does have a unique flavor, but I feel like I'll get tired of it if I watch it too much." Hearing Roha's words, Sokka felt rage boiling in his heart. Just wait for me. When I completely release the power of the 7-star sword, you will know how stupid your current behavior is. Sokka roared in his heart. Time is also passing by bit. About half an hour passed. Just when Roha's patience was about to run out, he heard Sokka not far away bursting out with powerful power. A strong wind rose. The waves were rough. With Sokka as the center, an extremely powerful force burst out. The power was so huge that Sokka didn't even move, and the ground began to crack. It seems that it is completely unable to bear the huge power of Sokka. The light of the blood moon also completely disappeared at this time. It seemed as if they were all absorbed into his body by Sokka. At this time, the 7-star sword was completely integrated into Sokka's body. The pattern of the 7-star sword appeared on Sokka's body. A small 7-star sword pattern is printed on Sokka's chest, looking like a tattoo. It's just that this tattoo is brighter than the normal one. I have to say, the way you look now is really disgusting. Roha stood up from the stone, stretched, and said to Sokka. Roha's words fell lightly into Sokka's ears. This undoubtedly completely ignited Sokka's anger. By G, outsiders are telling you how powerful you are. In my opinion, you are too arrogant. Now is the time you have to pay the price for this. As Sokka's words fell, I saw Sokka stretching out his arm and lightly swiping his fingers upward. The sword energy passed through Sokka's body, along the ground, and struck towards Roha. The ground keeps cracking. Dust scatters. Sword energy full of murderous intent surged out from the ground. When he was about to come to Roha, Roha's peak armament and domineering energy was directly wrapped around Roha's feet, and he stepped out in one step. The sword energy that surged out from the ground was directly stamped out by Roha. Don't tell me, I've been waiting for so long, and you finally reached this level? Intermediate level of Supreme Swordsman, doesn't it mean the power to rule the world? Are you sure you're not kidding me? Although I had already guessed it in my heart. But seeing this scene in front of him, Roha still couldn't accept it. After all, this is really too weak. According to Roha's guess, he will at least reach the peak of the Supreme Swordsman, or go one step further and reach the perfect state of the Supreme Swordsman. It can only be said that Luoya's expectations are too high. But Sokka does not have a clear understanding of his current strength. He just felt that Roha was jealous of him, because he still has too little knowledge and not enough experience. This is a common problem for many people on the sea. Yelong is arrogant, and always feels that he is invincible. Roha no longer wanted to explain anything. He walked slowly towards Sokka. Your mind has been eroded by the 7-star sword, and you are no longer what a human being should be. So, please go to hell. Who do you think you are? Look at how I torture you. Kill you! The unprecedentedly swollen Sokka waved his hands repeatedly. Waves of green sword energy spread out towards Roha. Every sword energy screamed in the air. The atmosphere became increasingly bleak. Depressed. The murderous aura was rising continuously, winding towards Luoya. The harsh sound passed through the air and fell on Roha's ears. Noisy! Hearing Roha snort coldly, his aura suddenly exploded. That is at least 100 times more powerful than Sokka, no, 1,000 times more powerful. This momentum alone directly broke Sokka's arrogance. Sokka was stunned subconsciously. Unprecedented pressure and panic, like a demon, were born in Sokka's heart. What is the mind controlled by the 7-star sword, and what is the body controlled by the 7-star sword? They were all no match for Sokka, and the fear was born in his heart at this time. I saw Roha stabbing in front of him with one finger. The wind has stopped. The sea is quiet. Ash has fallen. It was as if someone had pressed the time pause button. I don't know how long it has been, maybe a minute, maybe half an hour, or maybe just a moment. Everything is back to normal. The wind is blowing wantonly. The sea is lapping wantonly. Ash is sweeping across the world. Only Sokka in front of Roha has disappeared from the world. It was as if it had never appeared before. One finger. With just one finger. Sokka, the middle-level Supreme Swordsman, was beaten to ashes by Roha. Roha turned around slowly, as if talking to himself. Sure enough, he was promoted to the intermediate level of the Supreme Swordsman with external force, but his body was unable to train in a short period of time. Even with the support of the 7-star sword, it would be difficult to fight. It still feels a little soft. Roha glanced at his fingers, and then looked at Ain not far away. I've got it done here. Have those pirates been imprisoned and sent back? After hearing Roha's words, Ain nodded vigorously. None of those pirates can be beaten. They have all been imprisoned in prison again. Ain added, I'm a little worried about you, Mr. Roha, so I came over to take a look. It was okay if he didn't explain, but Ain was even more shy when he explained. Her delicate and pretty face was full of blush. Like a ripe red apple, people can't help but want to take a bite. But at this moment, a green light rushed towards Ain. This faint light is none other than the legendary magic sword of Aska Island, the Seven-Star Sword. I saw the Seven-Star Sword drawing an arc in the air and flying straight towards Ein. But compared to the previous light, the current Seven-Star Sword looks like a candle in the wind, and the light on it is too weak. Ein's reaction was not casual. After all, she was constantly promoted in battle. I saw that Ein's arm was wrapped with domineering energy, trying to stop the Seven-Star Sword. But when he touched the Seven-Star Sword, Ein felt as if there was an extra voice in his mind. Do you want to gain great power? If so, accept me. I will give you the power to rule the world. The sound of the Seven-Star Sword kept echoing in Ein's mind. It's like trying to seduce Ein to hypnosis. But she is a swordsman. The so-called swordsman can only use the sharp blade in his hand to cut through thorns and thorns. Talk about shortcuts. At this moment, a familiar and domineering pressure poured directly into Ein's mind. Let Ein come back to his senses from his confusion. Slowly opening his eyes, Ein found himself in Roha's arms. The Seven-Star Sword next to it had been turned into fragments and scattered on the ground. What a magic sword, what rules the world. At this time, it can only turn into a pile of ashes with the passage of time. Holding Ein in his arms, Roha said to Ein, Ein, you are great. You successfully resisted the temptation of the Seven-Star Sword. I think your heart for swordsmanship has become even stronger. Roha looked into Ein's eyes, then patted Ein's shoulder and said, I believe you will go further in the way of swordsmanship. Hearing Roha's words, he fell in his ears. Ein nodded vigorously in Roha's arms and said, Lord Roha, in this life, I will definitely become the sharpest sword in your hand. His eyes were full of adoration. At this moment, on the top of the mountain, under the full moon, and beside the sea, Ein said to Roha. The two hugged each other for a while and then returned to the village. At this time, many villagers were sitting around the campfire, feeling very depressed. The legend of the Seven-Star Sword has been circulating on the island for thousands of years. In their imagination, the power of the Seven-Star Sword has long been mythical. If the Seven-Star Sword is really allowed to wreak havoc, then their island will be the first to be implicated. Long Papa, do you think General Baigu can seal the Seven-Star Sword? Have no idea. Papa Long, will General Baigu protect us? Have no idea. Papa Long, General White Pigeon. This time, I didn't wait for the child next to me to finish speaking. Grandma Long stood up directly from the ground. She leaned on her crutches and looked ahead in disbelief. The wrinkled cheeks, at this time, can also see the sparkle in the pupils. Is that a white dove? As the old woman's reason fell, like a chain reaction, the villagers on the island all stood up from the ground. They couldn't believe it. Looking at the white dove wearing the robe of justice in front of them, their bodies were all trembling with fear. White dove, this is... Granny Long's lips were trembling constantly, and she walked towards Roha tremblingly. Otherwise, because there happened to be a child next to him, helping him. I think if Granny Long is not careful, she will fall to the ground. Baigu, how is Sokka? Sokka, because I killed the Major General, I killed him. What about the Seven-Star Sword? The energy of the Seven-Star Sword was completely exhausted. It broke into pieces. I twisted it into ashes and scattered it on the sea. After hearing Roha's words, many villagers breathed a sigh of relief. But then, they suddenly reacted. You can actually defeat the Seven-Star Sword? Is this the strength of General Beige? This is too terrifying, it actually shattered the legend. They had thought that the White Pigeon might defeat Sokka, who was controlled by the Seven-Star Sword. But they never imagined that the gap between them would be so huge. Baigu really defeated the legendary Seven-Star Sword. Or even crushed to ashes. Compared to the shock of the villagers, the girls who had been following Roha did not have any surprises. In their hearts, Roha is invincible. It is the common pillar in their hearts. Okay, today is a day that should be happy. Let's treat this incident as a small episode and let us immerse ourselves in the joy of the bonfire party again. The bonfire party lasted until early morning before it ended completely. The villagers on the island seemed to have completely turned away. There is nothing more joyful than coming out of the legendary nightmare. Roja and others also left the island on a general class warship. Comfortable sunshine. Warm sea breeze. Compared with the Great Waterway, the weather is unpredictable. The weather all over the world is more comfortable and pleasant. They have been out for 2 months. In these 2 months, Luoya really takes leisure to the extreme. Apart from the occasional little pirate I saw, there was basically nothing going on. With a fishing rod in his hand, Roja fished on the sailing warship. Kaya sat next to Roya and said to Roya, "Roya, can we really catch fish like this? I'm asking the willing ones to take the bait. Maybe some fish can't get away from it and hit my hook." Roya was wearing sunglasses, lying on the sun lounger, and said to Kaya next to him, "It looks so uncomfortable. Roya, do we have no purpose?" "Yeah, I'm just casually strolling around, taking time off to play, and honing my skills at the same time." "What's wrong?" "Kaya. Then can you go to Zilyoba village to have a look? I feel a little homesick." Roya knew what Kaya meant. I guess Kaya is worried about her parents. Although I heard from Kaya that when she came out, the wounds on his parents' chests had almost healed. But I'm still a little worried when I'm away from home. Thinking of this, Roya did not hesitate and said to Kaya, "In that case, then let's go to Zilyoba village." As Roja's words fell, 100 phantoms on the warship began to operate as if they were one body. The warship began to turn and sailed towards Zilyoba village in the East China Sea. At this time, in the East China Sea, a ship is sailing on the sea, and on the ship is a flag with 3 scars on its left eye. "Captain, I want to go back to Zilyoba village to have a look," Jesus Boo said to the red hair next to him. "Jesus Boo, didn't you say you didn't plan to go back?" the red hair said to Jesus Cloth. Jesus sighed. "Yeah, I didn't plan to go back. After all, my yearning for the sea made me leave my wife and children behind, which made many people have great opinions on me, but I still have them in my heart. Yes, so I plan to go there secretly this time." Hearing his crewmate, Jesus Boo, say such words, the red hair nodded. "Then let's go to Zilyoba village, but before that, are we going to have a banquet?" "Yes, let's have a party." "Captain, I'm going to prepare drinks right now." On the red-haired boat, the atmosphere continued to rise. After all, there is a captain who likes to hold banquets, so it is difficult not to raise the atmosphere. At this time, Roja didn't know that Red Hair also decided to return to Zilyoba village. Because of the Admiral-class warship, Roja and others can sail very fast on the sea. In just a few days, we arrived at Zilyoba village. Stepping back on the land of her hometown again, Kaya felt an unprecedented sense of intimacy. Taking a deep breath, Kaya said to the girls, "Let's go, I'll take you to my home, and then I'll make you a bunch of delicious food. After all, I was born on this island, so I am naturally a person on this island. So greeting everyone is a very normal thing." "Really? I want to eat lots and lots of delicious food." Luo Lan's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard about the food. "I was already thinking about how much I should eat this time." Seeing how excited Luo Lan was, Luo Ye also smiled and held Luo Lan in his arms. Afterwards, everyone walked towards the center of the island. As the saying goes, returning home in fine clothes. Kaya did not hide her or anyone else's identity at all. Everyone was wearing marine justice robes, and the breeze was caressing them, making them look very aura. Look, is that Kaya? Really Kaya? I didn't expect Kaya to actually become a marine. I'm so successful. I didn't expect Kaya to be so powerful." 1 spreads to 10, and 10 spreads to 100. Zilyoba village is originally a small island. In just a few moments, the news of Kaya's return spread throughout the island. Neighbors all came to Kaya's home at this time. They had heard before that Kaya was going to become Marine General by Ji's apprentice, but they didn't believe it at first. Because in their view, Zilyoba village is just a small village. Although Kaya's family is the richest on the island, it is impossible for them to get on the general's ship. However, they did not expect that Kaya would actually succeed. Among the crowd, a guy wearing sniper goggles, a light brown turban, and a long nose saw this scene in front of him. Tears suddenly fell uncontrollably from the corners of his eyes. His body was twitching. He looks quite useless, but the light shining in his eyes is extremely bright. Kaya, you really succeeded, that's great! Usopp murmured to himself that he sincerely wished Kaya to join Marine General White Pigeon's ship, because this represents an infinitely exciting future. Usopp thought of this and clenched his hands tightly. Kaya has already gone to sea, but so far, he has not made any progress. Apart from playing pirate games with those children, there has been no progress at all. No, this will make the gap with Kaya bigger and bigger. Usopp thought in his heart, and suddenly an idea was born in Usopp's mind. After looking at the crowd, Usopp slowly retreated. After greeting the people on the island, Kaya led everyone to her home. Kaya's parents are recovering well now. When he saw Kaya, Roya and others coming home, he immediately beamed with joy. Kaya, why didn't you tell your parents when you came back? By the way, I really thank you so much for the last time, General Baigu. If it weren't for you, our family really doesn't know what would have become. We must let us entertain you well. Kaya's parents are both very enthusiastic. For them, Roya not only saved their lives, but also thought about their daughter Kaya. You know, now my daughter has joined Admiral Baiji's ship, which represents the highest honor. At the same time, this also represents a safe environment. In their eyes, General Marine is the most powerful existence. In addition, Baigu has been in the limelight recently, so I think she will definitely be able to protect her daughter. Thinking of this, Kaya's parents became more diligent. Dragging Kaya, we went to the kitchen together to prepare delicious food for everyone. It's delicious, it's delicious, it's delicious. Luo Lan was beside him, constantly thinking about how cute he was. Okay, don't worry, I will definitely not miss you, Luo Ye said to Luo Lan next to him. Ain also said at this time. Kaya and her parents are really enthusiastic. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the food prepared by Kaya and the others. What will it be like? Stella said to everyone. After all, Stella is responsible for cooking in normal times. Therefore, adjusting your own cooking methods through other people's craftsmanship is also a secret to making more delicious food. Just when everyone is enjoying the ordinary time now. Outside, there was a knock on the door. Just when Stella was about to go to the gate of opening, Roya had already arrived at the door. When I hit the gate of opening, I looked out and saw a familiar face. Are you here to see Kaya? Kaya is cooking now, Roja said to Usopp in front of him. Usopp looked at the white dove in front of him and swallowed subconsciously. This is Marine's General White Pigeon. It would be great if I could, like Kaya, get into White Pigeon's ship. I think with Roja's help, I can definitely become stronger. In order not to widen the distance between him and Kaya, Usopp has made up his mind to make Roya his disciple. Bye, General Baigu, I'm not here to find Kaya, I'm here to find you. Usopp's courage, from a certain perspective, is indeed too small. Even speaking normally in front of Roja felt difficult. Looking for me? What's the matter? Usopp took a deep breath. At this time, the sun is just right and the breeze is gentle. It's a very comfortable temperature. However, Usopp's face was now as tight as a monkey's butt. I said, what do you want to say? You have been taking a deep breath for 5 minutes. Roja was a little helpless, looking at Usopp in front of him, quite helpless. If it weren't for this guy being a character in the original work, Roja would be more curious about what they would be like in the future, so they wouldn't waste so much time here. Suddenly, Roja seemed to feel something. He glanced towards the mountains in the distance. There are dense trees in the mountains, which looks like a good place to enjoy the shade. However, without looking much, Roja withdrew his gaze and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. As Roja showed his smile, the tension in Usopp's heart dissipated slightly. That General White Pigeon, I want to be your master. I want to be on the sea, ride the wind and waves, and become a sea hero. After finishing these words, he bowed deeply towards Roja. The mountains in the distance. A 3-person hug under a tree. Jesus held a telescope in his hand and looked at the scene in front of him. Hey Usopp, you are my son, why do you bow to Marine? Jesus sat under the tree and said through gritted teeth. I have to say, this feeling is really uncomfortable. But now if Jesus is asked to rush out directly, he will never dare to do it. You know, the person opposite is General Beige. He just came back to take a sneak look at his wife and children, and he didn't want to cause any trouble. Who's looking for me? Kaya came to Roya from the kitchen. Looking at Usopp in front of her, Kaya couldn't figure out what he wanted to do. At this time, Luoya explained from the side. He said that he wanted to worship me as his teacher. Kaya was surprised when she heard Usopp's words. In Kaya's opinion, Usopp simply does not have the courage to sail on the sea. From a certain perspective, this is indeed the case. If it weren't for the constant coercion of those partners in the original work, Usopp would have retreated long ago instead of becoming a desperate sniper king. After thinking carefully, Roja said to Usopp in front of him, I'm sorry, I think you may not be suitable for us. Why? When Usopp heard Roja's words, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Roja in front of him. Am I unqualified? If I am unqualified, I can change, I can endure hardship, I can work hard, I can even learn swordsmanship, I can do anything, I just ask you to let me on board. When Usopp finished saying this, he was already in tears. If they didn't know that Usopp had this character, others might think that he and others were bullying the villagers on the island. You don't know the path you want to take. In other words, you don't know what you want, so I refuse. Besides, you are too weak. You are too weak. When Roja said this, Usopp immediately ignored what Roja had said before. Subconsciously asked Roja, Then why can Kai get on the ship? This isn't fair. This is absolutely unfair. Usopp is dissatisfied. Looking at the Usopp who looked very stubborn but was actually very naive, Roya sighed. So I said you don't have your own path, you don't know what you want to do, Kaya wants to be a doctor, and keep working hard for this, what about you? Nothing more! After saying this, Roja stopped talking to Usopp and returned to his position. Usopp sniffed, feeling very unwilling, but he didn't dare to say anything. I could only look at Kaya in front of me and say, Kaya, I just want to be with you. Is it really impossible? Kaya looked at the person in front of her, and her face became very embarrassed. Without any hesitation, Kaya immediately said to Usopp, Stop dreaming. When I was rescued by Roya, I swore in my heart he is my Prince Charming, and he will never change in this life. My heart has been given to Roja a long time ago, so you should give up on it. After saying this, Kaya closed the door directly. However, she suddenly found that everyone in the room was looking at her. Suddenly, Kaya's delicate and pretty face was filled with a blush called shyness. Well, I just said that to make Usopp give up. No need to explain, I understand, your father and I both understand. Kaya's parents looked at their daughter and then at Roja, with unspeakable meaning in their eyes. Kaya knew that her parents had misunderstood, and not only had they misunderstood, she seemed to have been careless just now and spoke out her feelings. Just when Kaya felt that the atmosphere was gradually going astray, Luo Lan next to him suddenly said, Dad, it smells so good. I'm so hungry. When can we eat? Kaya's parents were stunned when they heard Luo Lan's words. No, I didn't expect that. General Baigo already has a child. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Even if Kaya is young. Before her parents could finish their words, Kaya interrupted them directly. What, Mom and Dad, what are you talking about? The relationship between Luoya and me is not the kind of relationship you think, and the relationship between Luo Lan and Luoya is not the kind of relationship you think either. Kaya just felt so tired. Listening to the noise around, the atmosphere became more and more lively. Roja laughed loudly, raised the sake in his hand, and said to everyone, Everyone, cheers to a better future! Cheers! The atmosphere in the room gradually increased. Listening to Kaya talking about her childhood, everyone just felt that the time was so beautiful. But after Usopp left Kaya's door, he became extremely disappointed. If Usopp was a man of despair before, then now he has cultivated despair to the peak. However, after returning to his home, Usopp suddenly discovered that there was a familiar figure in his home. Who are you? Usopp said tentatively to the man in front of him. I saw Jesus turned around, his face already full of tears and snot, just like Usopp now. Jesus held the photo in his hand and said to Usopp, When did this happen? Usopp came back to his senses and said to Jesus Boo in front of him, Not long after you left, I fell ill. Usopp grabbed the photo of his mother from Jesus Boo's hand and said to Jesus Boo casually, Yeah? Jesus was silent. He did not expect that his momentary willfulness would actually lead to such consequences. You must be very disappointed in me, right? Jesus came to Usopp and said. Usopp shook his head. I'm very disappointed in myself now. Did the white pigeon say something? He said I was too weak and that I had no goals. Really, then Usopp, let's bet the pirate flag and have a big special training. I will teach you everything I know. From now on, no one will talk to you again on the sea. Weak. Did you go out for a trip and your brain went crazy? Didn't you go out with a little pirate? No matter how powerful you are, how powerful can you be? Have you ever been to the Grand Channel? Listening to Usopp's words, Jesus frowned and thought to himself, Usopp still needs to see some things with your own eyes, which is the real growth. Hey! What are you talking about? Get up! Now! Immediately! Immediately! Go to training! Run around the island 10 times for me first. Otherwise, don't feed me today! The murderous aura on Jesus Boo's body suddenly dissipated, causing Usopp to rush outside in fright. Watching his son start training for running, Jesus felt a little relieved. Is there enough time? I don't know when. The red hair came behind Jesus Boo. After all, this is the child of his own crew. That's enough. Within 3 days, I will definitely train Usopp. Although he is not confident, he has my bloodline. 100% hit rate is just a foundation for him. That's all. I felt relieved when I heard you say that, but it's hard to imagine that Baigo would actually say that to him. I actually admire him a little. Ha 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 ha. I don't think there is anyone who doesn't admire you, Captain. Hearing Jesus Boo's words, the red-haired man laughed out loud. He naturally knew what Jesus Boo's words meant. But at this moment, a man wearing a robe of justice slowly walked towards them. The red-haired man's hearty laughter gradually stopped. Jesus Boo also subconsciously put his hand on his gun. I didn't expect that the aura I noticed just now was actually Jesus Boo, the sniper of the red-haired pirates. When Jesus heard Roha's words, his heart suddenly sank. Have you noticed my arrival from the beginning? Jesus couldn't believe it. You know, there is a long way between that mountain and Kaya's mansion. And at such a distance, Roha could even detect his presence. What a keen sense this is. Excuse me, General Baigu, what brings you here? The red-haired man put his hand on the hilt of his sword and said to the white dove in front of him. It's nothing, I just want to come over and get to know the red-haired one of the 4 emperors. You know, your name is well known to me. General Beige was joking, we should be the ones saying this. The redhead said with the same smile. Just the magnanimity to face General Marine calmly is already far beyond that of most people on the sea. I have long heard that you are quite advanced in the art of swordsmanship, so I would like to ask you for some advice. Is this your true purpose? Jesus Boo on the side looked at Roha with vigilance. On the contrary, it was the red-haired one who said very grandly, Okay, no problem, do you want to come now? As the red-haired man finished speaking, a strong momentum gradually rose from his body. Seeing this, Roha smiled. At some point, one of the 12 skills of the supreme sharp sword appeared in Luoya's hand. This is the supremely sharp knife that I brought over in the laboratory. It can also be regarded as Roha, in this identity, replacing Ryujin Jakka's sword. Hey, don't be so exaggerated. This is my hometown. It's not good for you to fight here. Just as Jesus finished speaking, Luo Lan also flew over from the air. When Red Hair and Jesus Boo saw Luo Lan, their pupils suddenly shrank. They are the pirate group standing at the top of the pyramid on the sea, so they can naturally recognize them. Luo Lan's fruit has awakened. And it's definitely a very powerful fruit. They did not expect that not only was Roja powerful, but his men were even more terrifying. Dad, an old man named Singwa called just now. He said that traces of the Revolutionary Army were found near Seymour Gigi village and asked us to go and check it out immediately. As Luo Lan finished speaking, the electronic sound of the system sounded in Luo Ye's mind. Ding, release the check-in task, Seymour Gigi village. Reward, the pinnacle of the Supreme Swordsman. Time, 3 days. The red-haired man glanced at Luo Ye in surprise. Ha ha ha, this is the first time I heard someone call Warring States an old man. By the way, is this your daughter? Yes, it's just that our relationship is a bit complicated, so I won't explain it to you. Roja and Red Hair put away their aura almost at the same time. I see. You obviously misunderstood something. Forget it, let's postpone this competition to the next time. After Roja said to the red hair, he waved to him. Seeing Roja disappear from sight, the red-haired man became more and more looking forward to the competition in the future. Why do I feel like you two are like friends I haven't seen for a long time? Jesus Bu stood beside him, rubbing his chin, and said to the red hair. Maybe, but Bai Ge is obviously different from most Marines. He knows what he wants. In the short time they met, the red-haired man gave Luo Ye a very high evaluation. The red-haired man added, By the way, this island is not very big. Your son should have completed a lap by now, right? Why didn't he hear any movement? When Jesus heard what his captain said, he was immediately angry. This guy must be lazy somewhere, let's see how I teach him a lesson. Thinking of this, Jesus Bu quickly chased Usopp. If Usopp saw it, he would definitely be shocked as to why his father's physique is so good. On the other side, Roya also took the girls and left Kaya's home and drove towards Seymour Shiki village. After seeing Seymour Shiki village, Roya immediately remembered the Yishin dojo on the island. At the same time, there is a girl named Kuina. Perhaps, something more interesting will happen this time. Zilyoba village is very close to Seymour Gigi village. Under the fast sailing of the general class warship, everyone had arrived at the island in one day. For Roja, this is the easiest sign in reward. Just listen to the electronic sound of the system in Luo Ye's mind. Ding, congratulations to host for receiving the reward, the peak realm of the Supreme Swordsman. This is the realm that countless swordsmen pursue throughout their lives. Feeling the changes in his body, Roja did not feel the slightest bit surprised. Stepping on the land of the island with a normal expression, Roja said to the girls, Since the Warring States period said that there are traces of the Revolutionary Army nearby, let's search carefully. Let's search separately now, and then gather here. After hearing Roja's words, the girls nodded in agreement. Stella and Kaya were in a group, and the others were in a group to search the island. The so-called search is actually just a show. Roya knew what he wanted to do. Thinking of this, Roja walked towards the Isin gym located in the center of the island. Before he even got close to the Taoist temple, Roja heard bursts of shouts and the sound of wooden swords rubbing against the air. Koshiro was sitting on the wooden floor, wearing thick glasses, his eyes almost narrowed into a straight line. He noticed Roja's existence when he came near Guin. Koshiro clapped his hands and said to the many disciples, Okay, everyone, today's training is over. Let's disperse. Yes, Mr. Koshiro. After that, the apprentices in the Isin dojo placed the wooden swords neatly in the dojo and left the dojo. Koshiro's eyes also looked at Roja. I saw the corners of Roja's mouth raised slightly and his eyes narrowed slightly. In terms of expressions, Roja and Koshiro's expressions are pretty similar. But compared to Koshiro, who gives people a sinister feeling, Roja is more gentle and gives people a feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. Ding, congratulations to host for checking in to Yishin Dojo. Reward, one of the 12 skills of the Supreme Great Knife Buddha-Yuvuin. This sword is a single-edged straight sword. The length of the blade alone reaches 7 feet and 4 inches. It is a special-shaped long sword, like an eagle's eye. The black sword, like Yorichi, is a supremely sharp sword that ordinary people cannot control. Sure enough, Ishin Dojo can sign in and clock in. That's right, from the beginning, Roja wanted to check into the Ishin dojo to see if he could get good things. Facts have proved that you will indeed get good things, and it is also one of the most powerful swords. In this case, Roja would have two supremely sharp knives in his hands. I don't know why General Beige, a member of Marine, came to my small gym? Koshiro looked at Roja in front of him and said, Oh, you know me? Of course I know. I often hear about the power of General Baigu. I am lucky to have such a famous general as General Baigu. I think I will feel more stable after coming to the sea. Koshiro was neither sad nor happy. He just narrowed his eyes and said to Roja, I hope the sea will be calm, the people will no longer be robbed, and everyone will live and work in peace and contentment. But you also know that there are too many potential forces in this sea. Sighing, Roja said to Koshiro in front of him, Just 1 day ago, I received an order from the Sengoku Fleet Admiral. He said that there was a suspected revolutionary force on this island, and he asked me to come and investigate. When Roja said this, the smile on his face disappeared instantly, and he said to Koshiro in front of him, I don't know, do you know about your museum owner? Revolutionary Army? I don't know about this. In recent times, except for the local villagers, I have not seen any other strangers. Oh really? Luya nodded thoughtfully and then said, Master, actually there is one thing that I am very curious about. Hearing Roja's words, Koshiro's heart sank. The sun was obscured by dark clouds. A cold breeze blew. Drizzle, falling from the sky. Koshiro discovered that Roya should be here for him. Although he thought so in his heart, Koshiro's expression did not change, and he still said to Roja with a smile, If I can help you, I will tell you everything I know. Seymour Jiji village, the size of this island is not large compared to other islands, and there are fewer places to live, so I am curious about why there are so many apprentices on such a small island. Come here to study? Or is this a training base for some kind of force? The smile on Roja's face became even more gentle. But Koshiro, under this touch of tenderness, felt a strong sense of malice. This guy. I've definitely got my eye on him. For some reason, this idea suddenly flashed through Koshiro's mind. Time passed minute by minute, and even Koshiro himself didn't notice it. His forehead was already covered with cold sweat. Master, don't you know the reason? Roja added. Isn't it because the parents on the surrounding islands want their children to have more survival skills, so they entrust them to you? After Roja finished speaking, he put his head in his hands and looked very relaxed. He turned around and walked outside, saying, After the inspection, there is no revolutionary army in Seymour Jiji village. Koshiro swallowed subconsciously, and the panic in his eyes gradually disappeared. Looking at Roja's leaving back, Koshiro felt extremely trembling in his heart. But this scary guy, what exactly does he want to do? Thinking of this, Koshiro got up and walked towards the museum. After thinking about it, he felt that this matter was unusual, so he should tell Long about it. On the island, a pleasant drizzle fell. Roja hummed a ditty that was not of this world and walked towards his warship. The current revolutionary army is still too weak. Apart from Long, there are few other decent generals. In terms of the overall strength of the forces, the current development of the revolutionary army is not as strong as the 4 emperors. After all, it's not a force that will be there in a few years. It's better to let you develop it for a while, otherwise it won't be of much use value. Thinking of this, Roja wandered around the island for a while. However, at this time, he turned into a phantom, while his real body was wearing a robe and walking towards the cemetery in Shurji village, Seymour. His current identity is Zero in the Morning and Night Bird organization. There was no face, and the body was hidden under the cloak, like a ghost, silently moving towards the cemetery. The Phantom and the other girls will head towards Malinfando. The rain kept falling. Roya put on his cloak and came to the cemetery in Shurji village, Seymour. Cemetery. Eerily quiet. There is only the sound of rain falling on the tombstone, and the sound of rain. Walking in the cemetery, Roja looked at the names on the tombstones and kept looking for Kuina's name. Finally, hard work pays off. In a corner, Roya found Kuina's name. It's really pitiful. She obviously wants to be famous in the sea and become the world's #1 female swordsman, but even after death, she can only do it at the outermost edge of the cemetery. Roja shook his head and said nothing more. He just took out the resurrection sword that the system had rewarded him with from the system space. The resurrection sword is a broken sword with gems engraved on it. It looks very mysterious and beautiful. You have always aimed to be the world's greatest swordsman. You definitely don't want to end your life like this. Let me see how firm your will is. As Roja's words fell, the resurrection sword in Roja's hand was suddenly inserted in front of Kuina's tombstone. In an instant, the entire cemetery was shrouded in a mysterious light. Under the light, Roja could see the existence of wandering souls. However, in the huge cemetery, only Kuina's tombstone has Kuina's figure on it. That figure is like a curled-up baby, which can arouse people's protective desire. She is such a girl, but she has ambitions in her heart that most people don't have. Hey, are you still going to sleep? Roja's voice seemed to reach the ears of Kuina, who had become a soul. Kuina slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Roja in front of her and frowned slightly. Who are you? Am I not dead? Why can I still hear your voice? In Kuina's mind, she can still recall the bone-chilling pain. Do you still want to keep working hard to achieve the goal of being the world's greatest swordsman? Sitting on her tombstone, Kuina lowered her head, her eyes indescribably dim. It is impossible for a woman to become the world's greatest swordsman, because her body will eventually limit her achievements, and she will never be the strongest. After saying this, Kuina's soul seemed to dim even further. Because before, she died with a strong unwillingness. But now, Kuina has begun to deny herself. If this continues, Kuina's soul may dissipate before long. As a one-time item, the resurrection sword is completely scrapped and can no longer be used. The most important thing is that when he first read the original work, Roja felt particularly unwilling because of Kuina. Although he worked so hard, practiced hard every day, and kept working hard for his dream, he finally died silently because he fell from the ladder. This is absolutely unacceptable to Roja. Roja took out the supreme sharp knife from the system space that he had obtained in the laboratory before. Taking it in his hand, he raised his arm and said to Kuina, Actually, you are also very unwilling in your heart. Who says that girls will be weaker than men when they grow up? What kind of girl is incompetent and absolutely impossible to succeed? Your goal is to become the world's greatest swordsman. In this case, then take the sword in my hand and let me see how you can reach the most powerful peak through your own efforts. Kuina! Roya's voice seemed to penetrate Kuina's heart. She looked at the 12 skills of the supreme sharp sword in front of her, and felt the meaning of Luoya's words. She discovered that Roja could actually express the deepest reluctance hidden in her heart. Suddenly, Kuina smiled. Smiling happily. Tears streaked down the raised corners of his mouth. Kuina looked at Roja in front of her. Although I don't know why you suddenly appeared in front of me, but as you said, I am really unwilling. Why are girls destined to be weaker than men? Even my father said so. I won't give in. I want to prove to everyone in the world that a woman can become the world's most powerful swordsman. Having already died once, I have nothing to fear. Arriving in front of Luoya, Kuina took over one of the 12 skills of the supreme sharp sword from Luoya without hesitation. I only heard Luoya whispering to Kuina, Remember, this knife is one of the 12 skills of the supreme sharp knife, and its name is Death. As Roja's words fell, the resurrection sword inserted in front of Kuina's tombstone suddenly glowed with unprecedented light. The light twines towards Kuina. The gems on the resurrection sword are getting darker and darker. And Kuina's figure became brighter and brighter. These lights constitute Kuina's new body, carrying the memories and dreams of the past, and using her new body to welcome the new future. As the light gradually dimmed, Roja placed the clothes and cloak he had prepared in front of Kuina. He said to Kuina in front of him, Welcome to a Sayab bird. From now on, you are a new member. Put on the clothes Roya prepared for her. Kuina's face was already covered with red clouds. Why didn't you tell me that I would be resurrected in this way? Did you just see everything? Kuina took a deep breath, as if to calm down her mood. But no matter how hard she tried, Kuina couldn't calm down. At this time, Roja stretched out his hand, gently touched Kuina's hair hidden under the cloak, and said softly, "Don't worry, don't feel shy. I will be responsible in the future." Kuina obviously didn't expect that Roja would suddenly say such a thing. The delicate and pretty face under the cloak became even more rosy. "Okay, let's not talk about these things for now, let's." Before Roja could finish speaking, Kuina said to Roja, "No, I keep my word, but I have already kept it in mind." After hearing Kuina's words, the corners of Roja's mouth rose. "I didn't expect that you have such a lofty goal but have such a conservative mind, but I quite like it." Ryujin felt that teasing Kuina in front of him was really fun. Kuina rolled her eyes at Roja, and then looked at the knife in her hand seriously. Holding her hands tightly, Kuina said to Ryujin, "I will never let down the opportunity you gave me." After Kuina finished speaking, he added, "By the way, what is the morning and evening bird you mentioned before? Is it an organization? I will tell you these things slowly in the future. The current situation on the sea is very interesting. I think you must be one of the brightest stars in such troubled times." Roya accompanied Kuina as she walked through Seymour Shiki village. Although a long time has passed, nothing has changed in the village. Kuina looked at the familiar scenery in front of her, and felt a very special emotion growing in her heart. He was a dead person, and Roja resurrected himself. Although I don't know how Roja knew these things about himself. But Kuina has made up her mind and will never betray Roja. Anyway, in other people's perception, she is already dead. Only, how about going to Ishin Dojo, fighting Koshiro, and then cutting off the past and facing the future? Kuina was shocked again. That's what she thought in her heart. Unexpectedly, Roja actually said it. Nodding vigorously, Kuina said to Roja next to her, "Can you let me be willful this time?" "Certainly." While talking, Roja brought Kuina to the Ishin Dojo. At this time, Koshiro told Long, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, what had just happened. Then I saw two uninvited guests wearing cloaks arriving at the Ishin Dojo. I didn't expect that the dojo would be so lively today. Koshiro smiled, looked at the two people in front of him, looked at Roja, and said, "Looking at your figure, you should be 0. I didn't expect that someone who made a big fuss in New World would appear in such an ordinary place. On an island?" At this time, the way Koshiro spoke was completely different from when he spoke to Roja Beige before. But Roja didn't say much. After all, there was only one purpose this time. Let Kuina cut off the past and face the future. Kick the gym! With that said, Roja pushed Kuina forward from behind. Kuina is also very cooperative now, slowly pulling death out of the scabbard, and then getting into a fighting stance. However, when this posture was put into place, Koshiro was obviously stunned for a moment. Why does this posture look so familiar? It's just a competition. After the competition, we will leave the island. At this time, Roja added another sentence. After hearing this, Koshiro said, "Since you have said so, it is better to obey orders than to be respectful. Please give me more advice." Kuina still didn't speak, just took a deep breath, and then attacked Koshiro with the sharp sword in her hand. The man in front of him is his father, and his opponent. When I was a kid, I kept playing against Koshiro. Therefore, she had already anticipated every move Koshiro would make. With one step, Kuina slashed directly towards Koshiro's waist. The sharp blade directly blocked Koshiro's movements. This ability to predict things in advance surprised Koshiro. Just when Koshiro wanted to take a step back and draw his sword from the side, Kuina took the lead and blocked Koshiro's movement again. Koshiro's heart sank, and without any hesitation, he immediately used all his power. This is a power that no one knows except dragons. The sword intent in his body suddenly exploded at this moment, sweeping towards Kuina. The blade of the sword was filled with aura of armament. The sword lay flat and stabbed Kuina mercilessly in front of him. At this moment, Roja's fingers rose slightly. A sword energy appeared out of thin air. Mu Dao style. Cut! This sword is ordinary, but it contains the terrifying artistic conception of the supreme swordsman at his peak. The sword energy slashes and flickers. The blade shattered. The area around the dojo was full of sword marks. Afterwards, Roha took Kuina and left the Ishin gym. Only a confused Koshiro was left, looking at the surrounding walls and muttering doubtfully to himself. How is it possible that Zero is actually at the pinnacle of the supreme swordsman, and that another person's fighting style is just like Kuina? How is this possible? The other sighed. After arriving at the beach, Kuina took off his hood and said to Roha, "Sure enough, the difference in strength between my father and I is really huge. Even if we knew in advance how he would attack, we still didn't. There's a way to react." At this time, Kuina looked at Roha again. "When I truly become the strongest swordsman, I must stand in front of him and tell him loudly that even a woman can become the strongest swordsman. Right, the supreme swordsman." At this time, Kuina looked at Roha next to her. At this time, the clouds and fog parted and the sky cleared. Kuina's eyes are shining brightly and her eyebrows are curved, looking very touching. "During this period, you stay with me and I will teach you swordsmanship. Now let's go to the Great Channel." Kuina has never left the island. As for the Great Channel, she has only heard about it in rumors. "Do we have a boat? How do we get there?" Without answering Kuina's words, Roha just waved his hand. Noah's Ark is extracted from system space. In an instant, the huge ship directly blocked the two people, and the sunlight directly hit them from above. Looking at the ship in front of her that was as huge as an island, Kuina looked in disbelief. Her lips parted slightly, looking indescribably shocked. Before Kuina could say anything, she felt her body light up and slowly flew towards Noah's Ark. "How much ability do you still have? You will know about these abilities in the future. During this period, I will also explain to you the current situation on the sea. Now let's go to the Sabaody Islands and participate in a grand auction." Sabaody Islands. Doflamingo, who had just been released from prison, was sitting on his chair again, looking at the exhibits in front of him. In order to be able to escape from detention, he even touched the bottom line of the Tianlong people, so that he was completely blocked by the Tianlong people. "But as long as you can escape, you can make a complete comeback," Doflamingo kept murmuring, and his forehead was already covered with bulging veins. "I must let Bai Gu know what the price for targeting me will be." Thinking of this, Doflamingo said to Torbol next to him, "Torbol, have you contacted 4 Emperors Kaido?" "Young master, we have been contacted. He is very interested in the Devil Fruit ability user unit we are talking about." "Really, that's good." After Doflamingo said this, he looked at Caesar in front of him and said, "Don't let me down, Caesar. I paid a huge price to rescue you from prison. Don't worry, Dover, we have a common enemy, and that is the White Pigeon." This auction is Doflamingo's first step back into the underground world. He had to succeed, and for this Doflamingo even asked Kaido, one of the 4 emperors, to send out Drought Jack, who had just taken over. As the second-generation Drought, Jack also wanted to prove his strength, so he happened to hit it off with Doflamingo. "Jack, I'll leave the security mission to you this time. As long as we have the funds, we can immediately invest in the research and development of artificial devil fruits." "Okay, I know." Drought Jack responded to Doflamingo and said nothing more. Feeling the power that Drought Jack continued to exude, Doflamingo felt a little calmer. Sabaody Islands. Because of Doflamingo's auction, it attracted many criminals. These criminals came to the auction with a large amount of money. "I want to take a photo of something I like from the auction." And the other side. 10,000 nautical miles away from the Sabaody Islands, a huge island-like ship is floating in the sky. This is Noah's Ark. On top of the Ark, Kuina is practicing her sword skills crazily. With Roha's peak medical skills, Kuina doesn't have to worry about leaving hidden wounds on her body. Moreover, with Roya's training method, muscles will not be too exaggerated due to crazy exercise, thereby reducing the aesthetic feeling. In addition, Kuina has a very good foundation and is very diligent. After experiencing death, her progress is even more rapid. In just a few days, he far surpassed the previous intermediate level of swordsman and reached the primary level of great swordsman. In the past few days, Kuina's title to Roja also became Master. Master, I noticed that you have been staring at the ship since just now. Do you want to do something? Kuina finished her training. Her body was covered with fragrant sweat. She fanned her palms and walked towards Roja. Of course I have no money. After all, your medicinal bath costs too much, and there will be an auction next, so you will need money. There happens to be heavenly gold down there. Rather than being used by the celestial dragons for evil, it would be better to use it on you. Kuina nodded. She had heard a little about the celestial dragons, even though she lived all over the world. I also hate the Tianlong people from the bottom of my heart. This time, we only steal money and don't hurt anyone. As Roja's words fell, Noah's Ark in the sky began to slowly descend. I saw a shadow on the sea gradually covering the transport ship below. On the transport ship, there were 2 lieutenants. Their reaction is also very fast. He immediately noticed this abnormal shadow and quickly entered a fighting state. However, as time went by, the ships that caught their sight became larger and larger. The hearts of the 2 lieutenant generals suddenly jumped up. My darling, what on earth is going on? This is too scary. Is there such a big ship in the world? Why didn't I know about it before? I remember, this ship is. Yes. Yes. As soon as the crew members said these words, the hull of Noah's Ark fell on the sea. In an instant, the waves spread out around Noah's Ark. Waves arose, constantly beating against the golden transport ship in the sky. Compared with Noah's Ark, this transport ship is like a small boat. It may be swallowed by the waves later. The sound of the waves also drowned out what the crew member wanted to say. But in everyone's minds they have already thought about who the ship in front of them belongs to. This ship is the ship of the mysterious man Zero. That mysterious man is here. One of the 4 emperors, Zero, actually appeared in front of us. Is it possible that this guy is eyeing heavenly gold? Everyone's eyes were filled with deep despair. No matter who it is, being targeted by someone who has defeated Big Mom and ascended the throne of the 4 emperors will feel very scary. At this moment, Roya, wearing a cloak, slowly floated out of the ship with Kuina. I have never accepted the title of 4 emperors. This title is really disgusting. In comparison, I think emperor is more suitable for me. Then, Roja's words fell. His body suddenly bloomed with spiritual pressure that was very similar to Conqueror's haki. These spiritual pressures instantly pressed on the crew members. It was like being completely targeted by a ferocious beast. A strong feeling of dizziness suddenly came to my mind. All the members on the boat fell down one after another and were unconscious. Kuina was stunned, looking at everything in front of her. Her father never told her these things. She learned about it from Roja. Is this Conqueror's haki? Kuina looked at the situation on the transport ship in disbelief. Because Roja deliberately avoided Kuina, she only saw these people suddenly fainted. In her mind, she had a clearer understanding of Roya's strength. Damn it, just a thought made everyone faint. Can we really resist this kind of terrifying pressure? The 2 lieutenant generals looked at their pierced palms and looked at each other. Under the power just now, they almost subconsciously pierced their palms with a knife to ensure that they would not pass out due to the presence of conquerors. It's true that he can make quick decisions and is a talent that can be developed, but he is still too weak. The moment Roja finished speaking, the 2 lieutenant generals knelt down directly in front of Roja, as if they had a tacit understanding. Wait a minute, we admit defeat, we are willing to give up the gold in the sky. In fact, we have not wanted to be Marines for a long time, as long as you can let us go. The corners of Roja's mouth hidden under the cloak raised slightly. Condescendingly looking down at the 2 lieutenant generals in front of him, he lowered his voice and said, Oh, how should I say it? Actually, we don't want to continue to stay in the marine for a long time. There is no oil or water at all, and there is no freedom at all. What we yearn for more is this kind of life like yours, sir, where you can do whatever you want. We are willing to give up the gold in the sky, and even kill all the crew members on the ship to express my determination. Oh really? Then do you know who I am? How dare you say this in front of me? Before the two lieutenant generals could react, Roja put down his cloak. Step on the air. Roja looked down at the two lieutenant generals in front of him. There was a slight sarcastic smile on the corner of his mouth. Killing one's companions is simply the most disgusting thing. This is something that Roja will never forgive. Originally, he planned to not kill anyone but only take away the heavenly gold, but as things stand now, these two people are already on Roja's must-kill list. On the boat, the two lieutenant generals looked at each other and saw confusion in each other's eyes. Who do you know who he is? Isn't he the Zero who defeated Big Mom? The man who is respected as the new four emperors. What they just said was also based on their identity as pirates. They just want more favorability. Don't let it happen because of it. Be killed. But they didn't know that precisely because of these words, their death was already destined. I saw Roja slowly taking off his hood, revealing his face hidden under the cloak. In an instant, time seemed to freeze at this moment. The two lieutenant generals were stunned and looked at Roja in front of them. He subconsciously said, "By General Baigu. How is this possible? General Baigu is actually Zero." Suddenly, the two lieutenant generals reacted and ran away immediately. Living on this sea, they know deeply that the more they know, the faster they will die. When they knew that Baigu and Zero were actually the same person, it meant that they would die. Sure enough, after seeing the shocked expressions of the two lieutenant generals, Roja showed a sinister smile. Kuina, you should be able to kill these two lieutenant generals who don't cherish their companions, right? Don't worry, master, I will never let you down. As soon as the words fell, Kuina pulled out death from her waist without hesitation. The figure fell from the air towards the two lieutenant generals below. The cold light of the sword blade reflected on the faces of the two lieutenant generals. An unstoppable sword energy, with the support of death, was simply not something that the two lieutenant generals could stop. Boom! Boom! The sound of two heads falling to the ground floated into the ears of Kuina and Roja. Even after death, you can see the deep disbelief in their pupils. They couldn't believe that the famous White Pigeon General and Zero, who violently beat up the four emperors' aunt, were actually the same person. The most important thing is that these two people appeared at the same time. No one realized that the identity of these two people was actually the same person. They just felt that they had discovered Roja, and that he seemed to be hiding some terrible plan. However, there is no one left for them to talk to. This secret has been brought to hell by these two people. The other people have also fainted, and it is impossible to notice all this. =+GVIC hashtag. After Roja used the power of the spell to transfer all Baileys to Noah's Ark, he once again controlled Noah's Ark and flew towards the Sabaody Islands. Over time, the marine soldiers on the transport ship gradually woke up from the shock. However, they only remembered the scene of Roja's arrival, and they did not know about other scenes. After checking the transport ship, all they saw was that the transport ship originally filled with berry had been completely emptied. In particular, the heads of the two lieutenant generals shocked them even more. They had never seen such a horrified expression before. It was as if he had seen something terrible before death. Without any hesitation, they directly contacted their superiors and then reported it level by level. In a short time, it reached the ears of Fleet Admiral in the Warring States period. Bang! What did you say? After the Warring States period heard that all the gold in the sky had been robbed, he was furious. Once again, he smashed his desk into pieces. Who robbed it? Don't the people who robbed it know that this is heavenly gold? Sir Fleet Admiral, the number of people who robbed seems to be 0. 0. It's actually that guy. Sure enough, every time he appears, nothing good happens. Anger gradually burned in Warring States' chest. As a result, blue veins appeared on Warring States' arms. Let people track him down immediately. What exactly does Zero want to do? Yes, Lord Fleet Admiral. After hanging up the phone bug, it didn't take long before the phone bug rang again. Without any hesitation, Warring States answered the phone again. Sir Fleet Admiral, we have investigated clearly. many marine branches have seen a huge shadow in the sky. The direction of this shadow's movement is obviously the Sabaody Islands. Sabaody Land Islands! When he heard the name of this island, Warring States immediately thought of the upcoming auction. The auction held by that guy Doflamingo actually attracted that guy Zero. Damn it! The Sabaody Islands are very close to Malinvando. If that guy Zero is allowed to come randomly, then Marine will lose face. Must. Gotta catch Zero. This will highlight the majesty of Marine. Thinking of this, the Warring States period immediately informed General Baigu. If his guess is correct, the White Pigeon should be rushing back now. Among the Admiral-class warships, Roya's Phantom is tasting Stella's delicious food. At this moment, the phone rang. Bulu bulu, bulu bulu. After just a few rings, Luo Lan answered the phone directly. Old man from the Warring States period, is that you? Hearing the voice coming from the phone bug, Warring States' anger suddenly increased a little. But now, he already knew the relationship between Luo Ye and Luo Lan. Although he couldn't believe it, he didn't say much. He could only hold back his anger and patiently said to Luo Lan, "Give the phone bug to Baigu. I have something important to talk to him about." Hearing what Warring States said, Luo Lan said, out of boredom, and then continued to eat happily. Roja took the phone call and said to Warring States, "Sir Fleet Admiral, what do you want from me?" "Baigu, you should be back soon, right?" "Yes, we are almost reaching the Sabaody Islands." "Really?" Sengoku's eyes lit up and he added, "That's just right. Go to the Sabaody Islands immediately to participate in Doflamingo's auction. According to reliable information, Zero's purpose may also be this auction. Remember to hide your I believe in your strength. As long as you keep him when the time comes, I will immediately ask Kizaru and Akainu to assist you." Warring States took a deep breath and said in an extremely serious tone, "This time, we can only succeed, not fail." Hang up the phone. The atmosphere among the Admiral-class warships was a little subtle. "Roya, what happened to make you so funny?" Kaya said next to Roya. "Nothing, just thought of some fun things." If Sengoku knew that he was not only the White Pigeon of Marine, but also the Zero of the Morning and Night Bird Organization, what kind of expression would he show? You know, he told him completely about this fighting opportunity. If we were to say who is the best at revealing information among Marines, it would be Sengoku Fleet Admiral. This time, we have to carry out a more dangerous mission. You should go back first. I will go to the Sabaody Islands and return to Marineland in a few days. I want to go too. Luo Lan was very naughty. With cyan wings blooming from his back, he came directly into Luo Ye's arms, put his arms around Luo Ye's neck, and said to Roya. Luo Ye took off Luo Lan from his body and said to Luo Lan, "Go back and practice hard. Now put the 6 postures on my agenda." "Okay, but you have to come back early." Roja nodded, and then directly used the power of the phantom fruit to cover himself with a layer of phantom. His whole appearance turned into that of a complete uncle. Then, the 8 gates Dunjia formation is open. The cells in Luo Ye's body were at least 10 times more active than usual. Jumped off the Admiral-class warship. Roja stepped directly on the sea water. As the afterimage flickered, Roja turned into an afterimage and disappeared from the sight of the girls. Ain and the other girls were all shocked when they saw Roja's power, and they all made up their minds to work harder. Must become stronger. At this time, an undercurrent surrounding the Sabaody Islands began to flow silently. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. In these 2 days, the number of people in the Sabaody Islands has increased unknowingly. In the past few days, all the taverns have been full, and there are no other places at all. Even Aunt Xiao's rip-off tavern had a lot of people coming. Rayleigh, who has been indulging in gambling and drinking, also noticed the difference in the Sabaody Islands. However, what many people don't know is that people walking on the streets, drinking in pubs, eating barbecue in barbecue restaurants. There are many Marine soldiers hidden among them. The purpose is to catch Zero. The Warring States period was determined. This time we can only succeed and absolutely cannot fail. While everyone on the Sabaody Islands was chatting and laughing, a huge ship slowly descended from the sky. Everyone who saw this ship felt a chill in their bodies. An emotion called fear spread in their hearts. They know who the owner of this ship is. That's someone who can beat up Ant. In the hearts of everyone, Zero is the man who defeated Big Mom and ascended the throne of the 4 emperors. I didn't expect that Zero would actually appear here at this time. Is it possible that he also likes the items at the auction? I don't know why, but I always have a bad premonition. Everyone on the island has different opinions. In the auction house, Doflamingo obviously also knew the news. Zero. This guy actually showed up. Doflamingo murmured. Obviously he was also very shocked. Because he knows Marine's approach very well. If Zero is above board and appears here, then Marine will definitely take action. Drought, contact your captain, we may need his help. When Drought Jack heard Doflamingo's words, he frowned and his aura suddenly dispersed. What Zero? As long as Captain Kaido's name is mentioned, he will never dare to target us. You know, Captain Kaido is known as the strongest person. Hearing Drought Jack's words, Doflamingo always felt uneasy. Although you say that, you must know that this person is the one who beat up the 4 emperors' Ant. When Roya, wearing a cloak, stepped on the Sabaody Islands, everyone subconsciously took a step back. It was as if Roha's body exuded some terrifying aura. Roha didn't pay attention to the gazes of the surrounding onlookers at all. Instead, he turned to Kuina next to him and said, Kuina, is there anything you want to eat? The auction won't start until tomorrow. Just relax today. After all, it's your first time to come to the Sabaody Islands. Bar. Kuina is still a little girl at heart after all. Although I have lofty goals, I still have curiosity in my heart. I saw Kuina nodded vigorously, with stars in her eyes, and said to Roha, Yes, master, this is the first time I have seen an island full of bubbles. The Great Waterway is really too big. Bravo. The Sabaody Islands are made up of many large trees, and the ground is the roots of the trees, so bubbles will emerge from the ground. Therefore, bubble culture can be seen everywhere in the Sabaody Islands. Bubble cars, bubble Ferris wheels, houses built on bubbles. Bubble culture permeates every place on Sabaody Island. Of course, before visiting the Sabaody Islands, we should go have some food first. I happen to know that there is a pub here, which is pretty good. After saying that, Luoya took Kuina to Aunt Xiao's Rip-Off Tavern. As soon as they arrived here, Roha and Kuina heard noisy sounds. There are already people sitting here. In fact, many of them were already drunk. It was as if he didn't care at all what would happen if he got drunk here. Or perhaps the people in this tavern are all members of a pirate group. Sure enough, just when Roha took another step, a man who was almost drunk slapped the table, stood up, pointed in the direction of Roha, and said, Hey, I told you, are you shady or something? Can't you see, this place has been occupied? Have we booked the venue? Now get out of here. Otherwise, believe it or not, I will kill you. As the pirate finished speaking, he threw the wine bottle directly on the ground. Shaki, who was behind the bar, saw the scene in front of him, and a flash of displeasure flashed in his eyes. Hey, this is not a place for you to get drunk and make trouble. If you want to make trouble, just go out and make trouble, otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. After saying this, Shaki looked at Roha, and suddenly, her pupils shrank. Shaki looked at Roha at the door and frowned suddenly. Then she rubbed her temples. She didn't expect that such a troublesome person would come to her tavern. If you want to fight, go out and fight. If you don't want to, there will be consequences at your own risk. Roya's eyes hidden under the cloak glanced at Shaki and said, Just 1 second. Who do you think you are, for just 1 second? Let me beat you to death. After speaking, the drunk pirate picked up the wine bottle in his hand and threw it towards Roha. The bottle was spinning in the air. When he was about to get close to Roha, I saw Roha's body suddenly releasing terrifying spiritual pressure. The very offensive spiritual pressure directly hit the wine bottle, crushing it into fly ash. At the same time, in their perception, The spiritual pressure like conquerors spread crazily. In an instant, Aunt Xiao ripped off everyone in the tavern. Regardless of whether they were asleep or awake, except for Aunt Xiao and Rayleigh, who was the waiter next to her, everyone else just felt that their internal organs seemed to have undergone a major reversal in their bodies. The intense pain constantly stimulated their brains. Even if they want to faint, they can't do it. Rayleigh naturally felt this terrifying conqueror's dominance. This kind of conqueror's domineering power that directly affects the entity. In Rayleigh's mind, apart from his former captain, it seems that only the red-haired one of the 4 emperors can reach this level. Puff. I don't know who couldn't bear it first, and in less than a second, he was seriously injured with blood spurting out. Although the rest of the people didn't spurt blood, they were almost there. All of them were seriously injured. Until this time, all the pirates in the tavern had sobered up from their drunkenness. They all knew that the 2 people in front of them were existences that could never be offended. Looking at their costumes, everyone suddenly thought of the existence of the ant who beat up the 4 emperors. From a certain point of view, although Roja himself does not like the title of 4 emperors at all. But in the hearts of pirates like them, Roja's strength is undoubtedly that of the 4 emperors. When they were sober, even if they were given 100 ambitions and courage, they would not dare to make those actions just now. Throwing bottles at 4 emperors is like carrying a lantern to the toilet courting death. Roll, Roja said softly with disdain. In an instant, the people in the tavern felt as if they had heard something, the most beautiful words in the world. Although he was seriously injured, he still rolled around, got up from the ground, and ran outside. At this point, Shaki didn't want to say anything more. He just said, "Remember to pay, you have spent a total of 100 million belly. You are not allowed to leave until you pay the money," Shaki said to the pirates in front of him. At the same time, Rayleigh also closed the door very cooperatively. This is how the name of the Ripoff Tavern came about. Now Roya is here, like a Shinigami, as if he is ready to take their lives at any time. As long as they can escape from this tavern, they are willing to pay any amount of money. The man who looked like a captain quickly took out all the baileys he had on him. Everything of value was placed in front of Shaki. All the crew members became paupers almost instantly. They came for this auction and naturally prepared a large number of baileys, but now they are all buried here. After seeing these pirates giving all their wealth to him, Shaki nodded. Rayleigh just hit the gate of opening and let these pirates out. These pirates rushed out of the tavern as if they were crazy. That feeling didn't look like he was seriously injured at all. Now it's clear. Rojas seemed to be talking to himself, and then sat next to the bar. Kuina also hugged Death and sat next to him. 10 skewers of roasted birds and 2 bottles of soju. After ordering, Roya said to Rayleigh next to him, "Pluton Rayleigh, why don't you join in the fun of this auction?" The atmosphere in the tavern, which was originally a bit subtle, became even more stagnant after Roja's words. Nowadays, the Sabaody Islands are already experiencing turbulent times. No one knows what will happen in the next few days. Anyone with some brains can detect the weirdness of the Sabaody Islands at this time. That's why Rayleigh didn't go anywhere, just stayed in the tavern. But even so, there was still a person who recognized him and directly said his title. Rayleigh was a little surprised. But he did not answer Roja's question. Instead, he came to Roja's side and said to Roja, "Do we know each other? I know you, but you don't know me." "Oh, really, it's really an honor to be recognized by Zero." Although Rayleigh said it with a smile, there was no smile on her face. Kuina glanced at Roya and then at Rayleigh. She just came to the Great Channel and couldn't understand what Roya and Rayleigh were talking about. She has pursued swordsmanship since she was a child and doesn't care too much about this kind of thing. Rayleigh added, "You came here not just for a simple meal, right? What is your purpose?" "The purpose is very simple. I just want to know how many large pirate groups have come to the Sabaody Islands, or how many more powerful forces have come to this island." When Shaki heard what Roja said, he took out a lady's cigarette from his pocket, lit it and took a sip, and said, "Are you here to buy information? It seems that in your organization, the collection of intelligence is not very good, Or it should be said that they are all combatants, and there are no intelligence personnel at all, right? That's right, but this situation can't last. How long? Shaki was obviously stunned when he heard Roha's words. She didn't understand what Roha's words meant. But it doesn't matter, as long as she knows Roha's purpose. Taking another puff of cigarette, Shaki said to Roha, "The price of this information will be very expensive. Bring up the soju." Roha picked up the cup from the table, took a sip, and said to Shaki in front of him, "Just say it." After receiving Roha's answer, Shaki took out a small notebook from under the bar, looked at the forces recorded on it, and said to Roha, "As of yesterday, a total of more than 3,000 pirate groups have arrived at the Sabaody Islands. Among them, the captain has a bounty of more than 100 million, and there are more than 700 pirate groups. More than 700 bounties of more than 100 million are considered relatively normal. After all, the strength of the pirates who can come near the Sabaody Islands is not too bad. As for other forces, Marines should have sent at least 1,000 Marine soldiers, hiding themselves as other pirates, and landed on the island. According to accurate information, Marine General Baigu has landed on the island, and one of the 4 emperors, Kaido's subordinate Drought Jack, Scientist Caesar, as well as the newspaper tycoon Morgans, the Queen of Happy Street Stussy, the mercenary group boss Helding, the professional killers Fanku brothers." After hearing this, the people who had come to the island raised the corners of Roha's mouth slightly. "It seems that this island is going to be in chaos. Yes, your presence alone can completely destroy the Sabaody Islands, right? Don't say it so harshly. I really just want to participate in the auction. I don't mean to come here to cause trouble." "For that fruit?" Rayleigh next to him said to Roha. "Of course, although I have many powerful fruits in my hand, I really don't have this kind of fruit that can make money quickly." Luoya drank up all the soju in the cup and said, "As long as I have this fruit, I won't have to fight for gold in the sky. After all, it's too much trouble." As Roha's words fell, the atmosphere in the tavern, which was originally slightly responsive, became even more stagnant at this time. "What did you say? Did you steal the gold from heaven?" Shaki's pupils shrank suddenly, and he looked at Roha in front of him in disbelief. Roha nodded slightly, and then said to Shaki, "By the way, how much do you plan to pay for this information in total?" "I just paid it with the golden Bailey from the sky." Hearing what Roha said, Shaki quickly shook his head. "Forget it, I'll just treat this information as a gift to you. These things are all free. Just treat it as a good relationship." After Shaki said this, he rubbed his temples in pain. She didn't expect that Roha in front of her could be so cruel. You know, Bailey in the Gold in the Sky has a special code. Every code is recorded. When gold is robbed, CP0 will be sent to investigate. It can be said that whoever accepts the heavenly gold is equivalent to setting himself up for trouble. If you use this money to auction it, it can be said that it is directly equivalent to free prostitution. Not only that, Doflamingo, who has just been released from prison, might even get angry. Roya naturally observed the change in Shaki's expression. His other identity is General White Pigeon. Naturally, he already knew the issue of heavenly gold. It can be said that he used heavenly gold to participate in the auction because he really wanted to cause trouble. "Since you are so generous, boss, let's get 10 more roasted birds, and then a Poseidon-type barbecue." Hearing Roha's words, Shaki felt his heart bleed and glared at Roha fiercely. Roha spread his hands and said to Shaki, "Say, boss, if it weren't for me just now, you wouldn't be able to get so much money. You have planned this, right?" "Certainly." In just a few words, Shaki put Roha in the column that should never be messed with. All I can say is that Roha is really terrifying. During the period of contact, Shaki and Rayleigh, however, realized Roya's power and terrifying mental strength. Even for the Warring States period, who was known as a wise general, Shaki didn't think he could possibly compare to Roya in terms of mental strength. No, to be precise, it's the leader of Morning and Night Birds, Zero. Soon, after enjoying the delicious food in Aunt Xiao's rip-off tavern, Roya took Kuina and wandered around the Sabaody Islands. His traces were also reported to Sengoku by the Marines around him all the time. In this regard, Roja also used his other identity White Pigeon. Asked the Warring States period for instructions, should we attack now and round up Zero? However, the Warring States period felt that launching an attack now would easily alert the enemy. And the surrounding area is relatively empty. If Zero wants to leave, no one can stop him. Only attacking during the auction is the best choice. So, there was nothing to say all night. The next day, the Sabaody Islands are crowded with people. Most of them are pirates galloping on the sea. Even Marine felt like breaking into a cold sweat after seeing such a large number of pirates. Fortunately, they only have one common purpose this time. That is to participate in this auction. For this auction, Doflamingo spent a lot of effort. Not only golden fruits, but also other special things. It will only appear at this auction. Moreover, this auction has no restrictions on the first level. As long as you come, you are considered a participant. The second and third floors are invitation only. An invitation letter is required to participate in this auction. Luoya naturally had an invitation to the auction in his hand. It was Doflamingo who personally sent the invitation letter. After all, in Doflamingo's eyes, Zero's identity is the same as Kaido's. Although they don't have any transactions now, it doesn't mean there won't be any in the future. It is still very important to be able to establish a good relationship in advance. Walking on the Sabaody Islands, everyone subconsciously made way for them. Kuina followed Luoya and looked at everything in front of her. She just felt that her master was so awesome. Kuina, walk faster, don't lose yourself. Roya's voice reached Kuina's ears. Really, master, I'm not a child, how could I get lost? With that said, Kuina quickly took a few steps and came to Roja's side. When Roya and Kuina arrived at the auction house, Kuina took out the invitation letter. Under the envious gazes of many pirates, he was invited into the auction house by the etiquette lady. How many rooms are there on the third floor? Roja said to the etiquette lady who was leading the way. The etiquette lady didn't hesitate at all, and said softly to Roja, Sir, there are 5 rooms on the third floor, and there are 20 rooms on the 2 floors, but they are far less gorgeous than the third floor. Do you know who the people in the other 4 rooms are? Miss Etiquette hesitated for a moment and said to Roja, Yes, I'm sorry, we have regulations and we cannot reveal other people's identities. Yeah, I know. Roja didn't force this person, he just pointed lightly towards the other rooms he passed. The phantom fruit activates. Several insect phantoms the size of mosquitoes and flies flew towards the room. After arriving in the room, Luoya checked to see if there was any surveillance phone bug, then took off his hood and revealed his true face. Now other rooms have their own phantom bugs monitoring them. No matter who came, he could see and hear what they said. As time goes by, there are more and more people on the first floor. Even standing positions are very rare now. It's crowded and it's not too hot at all. Roya even spotted Pluton Rayleigh among the crowd on the first floor. Is this old guy really here too? As for the second level, Roja didn't care at all. On the contrary, no one from the third level has come until now. Sitting on the seat, Luoya ate the fruit plate in front of him and said to himself as if, It seems that we came early. Those guys didn't care about the first few auctions. Just as Roja finished his words, the auction finally started. I saw a beautiful woman with big green waves, catching everyone's eyes. Everyone who is strong on the sea, welcome to the auction venue in Area 1 of the Sabaody Islands. I am the host Sirona this time. As Sirona finished speaking, most of the pirates on the first floor cheered. Most pirates are very vulgar. After they saw Sirona on the stage, they all blew their whistles and glanced back and forth at Sirona's body with pairs of wolf eyes. Sirona seemed to turn a blind eye to these glances. As the top auctioneer in the auction venue, she would not care about this. As long as the auction item can be auctioned to the highest price, that's it. Therefore, I saw Sirona twisting her body and constantly highlighting her advantages. After stimulating the atmosphere of the auction house and listening to the wild roars around her, Sirona felt that the atmosphere was about the same. Now, let's launch our first auction item. This auction item is a branch of the giant tree, Atom. Sirona said to everyone. You know, if the branches of the giant tree Atom are used to make ships, the toughness of the ships will be greatly improved. Even if they are bombarded by cannonballs, they may not be able to make many craters. The so-called first item that comes up must attract the eye and capture everyone's attention. And the giant tree Atom happens to be this kind of existence. Rare enough yet practical enough. Upon hearing Sirona's introduction, many people's eyes lit up. I didn't expect that Doflamingo would be so generous. It's just too exaggerated to put Atom's branch on top, and it's such a huge branch. It's really hard to imagine how exaggerated the auction items will be. You know, there are many big pirates among them who have been looking for atom trees on the sea. The goal is to build tougher ships, thus sailing on the sea. But now, they all couldn't wait to start bidding directly. Sirona obviously noticed how fanatical those people at the scene were. I believe that I don't need to say more about this item. The starting price is 100 belly, and each increase in price must not be less than 100 belly. Please bid. As Sirona's words fell, the people on the first floor roared wildly. The starting price is 100 belly. Each increase in price is no less than 100 belly. So cheap? How strange! In the box on the third floor, Roya sat on the luxurious sofa. Because the glass is specially made, Roja is not afraid of exposing his identity at all. These people are so cute and silly that they actually think they can actually take pictures. After all, most of the pirates are very vulgar, and have no idea what this woman named Sirona wants to do. Although Kuina has never participated in an auction, she can still figure out these things. Yes, because everyone has a sense of participation, everyone will shout at different prices. But because everyone has different acceptable prices, this auction price is likely to reach a new high. Roja said, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. So, at this time, Roja picked up the phone bug on the table and said directly, 300 million belly. Roja's words were like a basin of cold water, pouring directly on their hearts. They were not even qualified to participate, and were directly frightened by the 300 million baileys. The whole place was silent, because the sound came from the third floor box. So no one dares to bid. It's so scary! Sirona was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that such a thing would happen. 300 million times, is there really no other bidder? You know, according to the market price, such a large piece of Atom's branch is worth 37 million, and it is the kind that has a price but no market. As Luolona's words fell, many people's hearts felt hot. But when they thought that they might offend the beings on the third level, they all became silent. You know, although they are a little stupid, they are not fools. Judging from Roja's tone just now, it is absolutely inevitable that he will win. Coupled with their abundant funds, it can be said that winning this Atom's branch is an absolute certainty. Instead of provoking bosses, it's better to look up and breathe and keep your head down. The auction suddenly became quiet. In a room at the very back, Doflamingo looked at the surveillance phone bug and saw the picture displayed on it, and anger suddenly rose in his heart. This box must be that guy Zero. The Atom branch, which had the potential to hit a new high, was actually suppressed. Young master, calm down, there are many precious auction items later. I think they will definitely make up for the loss of Atom's branch. Hearing Torbel's words next to him, Doflamingo's anger calmed down slightly. At the same time, a second guest also arrived in the private room on the third floor. This second guest is Stussy, the queen of Happy Street. At the same time, Luoya also knew her other identity, which was CP0. Under the surveillance of the phantom bug, Roja saw Stussy, paused at the door of his box, and then left. Although the stay time, added up, was probably less than a second, it gave Roja a very strange feeling. With the arrival of Stussy, several other people in the box also came to their own box. In addition to Roya and Stussy, the people in these boxes are newspaper tycoon Morgans, mercenary group boss Helding and the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Long. Roja used the phantom bug to see and notice the people in the box. He did not expect that even Long, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, would appear here at this auction. At this time, the auction item has reached the 7th item. This auction item is a treasure map. A pirate's love for treasure is like a man's desire for a woman. Except for those big pirate groups who already have a lot of wealth. Those little pirate groups really want to own this treasure map. Just below, countless pirates were bidding fiercely. Roy noticed that Stussy, who was in the box next to him, walked out of the room. Walking towards his room. Putting the hood back on, the door just opened at this time. I saw Stussy coming to the box alone. Kuina's reaction at this time was not slow at all. She took out Death from her waist and pointed the sword at Stussy. Stussy locked the door, looked at Kuina with a smile, and said to Kuina, "I don't have any ill intentions, I just want to discuss something with your leader." Kuina was still unmoved after hearing Stussy's words. At this time, Luoya said calmly, "Let her come over. I am also very curious about what the Queen of Happy Street has come to see me for." Roja spoke in a lowered voice. Even Stussy didn't notice at all that this was actually the voice of General White Dove. When he came to Roja's side, Stussy did not tell his purpose immediately. Instead, he asked Roja, "Zero, have you chosen any auction items? Don't say something that you have or don't have, just state your purpose directly." Roja said to Stussy next to him. When Stussy heard Roja's words, the expression on her face did not change at all. He just picked up and placed the sake that Roja had just drank on the table. "Use your red lips to take a sip on it." With a faint smile on his face, he said to Roja, "Actually, my purpose is very simple. I want to join your organization." "Join my organization? Haha, do you think I will agree if you suddenly say this? After all, no matter how you look at it, you are planning something evil." Roja's tone was very calm, as if he was not shocked at all by Stussy's words. This can only show the depth of Roja's city. However, the depth of Roja's city made Stussy very happy. Because this means that Roja's ability is stronger. This will make Stussy feel more at ease. Yes, for others I will definitely refuse, but I think you, the leader, will definitely agree. Roja said nothing, waiting for Stussy's next words. Just listen to Stussy and say to Roja, "Because I am the Queen of Happy Street and control most of the information channels in this world. My joining can directly give the organization a huge improvement in its intelligence collection capabilities. Substantial growth." Stussy took another sip of sake and said, "After all, in this world, information is very important. For example, I have information about other people in the box. You want to know who came in the box today? People, what are those people? Newspaper tycoon Morgan's mercenary group leader Helding, and Revolutionary Army leader Long, right?" Luoya smiled lightly and directly reported the names of these people. Stussy, who was originally full of confidence, after hearing these names spoken by Roya, his pupils shrank suddenly and he said subconsciously, "How do you know? How do I know? This is not what you should be concerned about, but what you should be concerned about. What kind of bargaining chips do you have to release to make my heart move and let you join our organization? Is the name of the organization called a Sayab bird? A Sayab bird is a crow. Countless people hate crows and are afraid of crows. They think crows are shinigami that bring death. But they don't know that crows are the most filial and well-behaved of all birds. Stussy covered her mouth and chuckled. "I didn't expect that your goal, Mr. Leader, is actually world peace. In fact, I also yearn for world peace very much." Roja nodded slightly, and changed the subject calmly to Stussy. Luoya still admired him in his heart. "It's just that it's really hard for me to feel at ease and allow a CP0 intelligence officer to join my organization. Killer!" As Roja's words fell, Stussy only felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. The bone-chilling cold completely surrounded him. How does he know that his true identity is CP0? What he knew wouldn't surprise Stussy. Only this directly brought Stussy into despair. "How did you know?" Stussy said to Roja in disbelief. Of course, the information was obtained through our special intelligence agency. This intelligence agency does not exist. But who let Roja know the plot in the original work? Therefore, you can directly fabricate an intelligence department that does not exist, and then put pressure on Stussy. Stussy has obviously fallen into the illusory trap constructed by Roya. She is in the intelligence service herself. However, she has never heard of any intelligence agency that can investigate her true identity. Even someone who is known as a newspaper tycoon, and who is evenly matched with Marine in terms of intelligence, will never be able to find out his identity. Stussy really couldn't figure out how Roja did it. But at the same time, this also strengthened Stussy's determination to join the Roya organization. Since you already know, Mr. Leader, I won't explain any more. Stussy's eyes were a little dark. Just please take me in. Let me join the organization. As long as you are willing to let me join the organization, I will do whatever you asked me to do, even. Stussy bit her lower lip lightly, her expression unspeakable. However, Roja seemed not to see it. Still very indifferent, he said softly. Give me a reason. During Big Mom's tea party, I actually had this idea. Because I have long wanted to escape from CP0, but Leader, you should know that once you escape from CP0, it is equivalent to death, and they will not let me go. So I was wondering if I could join a very powerful organization, seek asylum, and then slowly break away from CP0. Because of my recent actions, CP0 has become suspicious of me, and I really don't have much time. I know that, sir, you have a very powerful intelligence agency, but if you accept me, it will be the icing on the cake, right? I can also use the resources in my hands to help the Leader understand CP0 better. No matter what your purpose is, I can give you the most powerful help, Stussy said while kneeling in front of Roja. Her time is really running out. Roya looked condescendingly at Stussy, who was kneeling in front of him. He didn't speak, but turned his attention back to the auction. Time goes by like this, second by second. After a while, it was time for the golden fruit auction. I saw Sirona putting the golden fruit in her arms and moving there continuously, attracting everyone's attention. As several auction items came down, the atmosphere returned again, even more enthusiastic than before. Everyone, as we all know, devil fruit is a treasure in the sea, and this fruit is even more special. It is paramecia, a golden fruit that can control gold and achieve incredible effects. The starting price is 100 million. Each bid increase cannot be less than 10 million belly. We also hope that everyone will bid enthusiastically. 500 million Baileys. Luoya used the phone directly and said calmly. As Roja's words fell, the whole place fell into silence again. But then, the mercenary group Hailding, who was also in the third floor box, also chased the price. 600 million Baileys. Revolutionary Army Dragon. 610 million. 800 million. Luoya has heavenly gold, and it can be said that he doesn't feel bad about spending money at all. Anyway, when the time comes, Doflamingo will be the unlucky one. After hearing what Luoya said, everyone just felt that Luoya was too rich. Especially the Revolutionary Army Dragon was deeply touched. He is also the leader of the organization. Why can Roja be so rich? But he wanted to break a Bailey into two halves. This made the Revolutionary Army Dragons become even more wary of Roja's organization. 800 million once, are there any bidders? Sirona, I like men who are generous. The whole place was quiet. Sirona felt very embarrassed. This situation will occur as long as Roja bids. Is there really no one bidding? 800 million times. Just as Sirona finished her words, Hailding bid again. 1.5 billion. This was Hailding's intention. 2 billion. Luoya didn't even have the slightest fluctuation, and read out a number coldly. Suddenly, the whole place was in an uproar. 2 billion. Which big guy is this? This is too scary. Although the golden fruit seems very powerful, it depends on the person who eats the fruit. Can that guy really develop the golden fruit to such a powerful level? Maybe they don't eat it for themselves. Anyway, 2 billion is a bit exaggerated, because of what Roja said. During the auction, there was once again a heated discussion. In the end, the golden fruit was bought by Roja for 2 billion belly. Stussy, on the other hand, has been kneeling in front of Roja. The auction continues. After the golden fruit, we passed several auction items and came to the mysterious auction item in the propaganda newspaper. Sirona mysteriously took out this item from a safe. This item is small. Through the projection phone bug, the people in the audience could see clearly what it was. I saw Sirona explaining to everyone. This is the ultra-micro bomb studied by one of the most famous scientists in the sea, Caesar Courant. This bomb has the effect of controlling others. It contains fragments of sea tower stone. Even with abilities, it can be controlled easily. Normally, it has no effect on the user and will not be corroded by digestion, but once it betrays its owner, just press the button and the bomb will explode. In terms of power, it has reached the level of explosion that 1 ton of explosive rock can achieve. In addition, when it explodes, it will also release the sea tower stone, which can kill the devil fruit. As Sirona's words fell, everyone exclaimed. But this is not very attractive to first-level pirates. On the contrary, it is very attractive to people on the second and third floors. Because this ultra-miniature bomb is very useful to them. Stacy, when she heard about this item, his eyes became even darker. If Luoya takes a picture of this thing and gives it to her, she might be able to gain Luoya's trust. But there is really no freedom. Doesn't she want to live freely after leaving CP0? Thinking of this, Stussy's eyes were filled with darkness. As expected, Roja is still very interested in this. As soon as it came up, the sky-high price of 2.5 billion was directly revealed. More expensive than golden fruit. It was taken down by Roja alone. When Stussy saw this scene, she thought to herself, we can only take one step at a time. Thinking of this, Stussy said to Roja, Master Chief, you can give me this thing. In this case, you should know my determination. Roja lowered his head, glanced at Stussy lightly and said, You don't need this thing. Because I believe in you. When Stussy heard the first sentence, she even thought that she had been given up by Roya. But then, when she heard Roja's second sentence, her eyes suddenly flashed with blazing light. Please give me more advice in the future, my lord. With that said, Stussy knelt in front of Roya and gently kissed Roya's feet to express her loyalty. Then he stood behind Roja, trying to calm down the excitement in his heart. Stussy has never felt anything like trust. Because in the initial CP0 life and death training, she relied on intrigue to survive. Now Luoya has given her trust and a strong sense of security, so she will work hard to repay Luoya. Stussy has a little woman's side in her heart. She had never had a heartbeat before, but at this moment she felt the urge to follow Luoya for the rest of her life. The auction items were brought out one by one. All were sold at higher prices than usual. Doflamingo in the background almost grinned from the corners of his mouth to his ears. With his face glowing red, he felt that he had made a lot of money. Fu, I didn't expect that this time Bailey, who made zero contribution, would actually be the one with the most. However, Doflamingo did not notice that there were many more people outside the auction. They vaguely feel like they want to surround the auction house. The auction went on all morning. Finally, under Sirona's extremely passionate words, the auction ended. At this time, the etiquette lady also came to Roja's box. By this time, Stussy had left. Therefore, there were only 2 people in the huge box, Luoya and Trina. Sir, please come with me. The young master has prepared a special exit passage that will not reveal your traces. He is worthy of being called a joker. He really knows the rules. Following the hostess, Roja came to the backstage and saw Doflamingo at the same time. Doflamingo, who was sitting in his seat, jumped out of his seat when he saw Roja. Arriving in front of Roya, he said respectfully to Roya, Zero, thank you very much for coming to my auction. This is the diamond card for our auction. Everything that will be auctioned at our auction in the future, 20% off. This is Doflamingo, here to show his favor to Roja. However, Roja did not accept Doflamingo's kindness. He directly crushed the diamond card into powder, and then Roja waved it. A total of 4.8 billion Baileys appeared in the room. This room was filled up more than half. This is a total of 4.8 billion belly, what I took a photo of. Doflamingo frowned subconsciously, but thinking of the identity of the person in front of him, Doflamingo said nothing more. He just asked someone to bring the Adam's branch, the golden fruit, and the control pills. Roja directly received these things into the system space under the stunned gaze of everyone. Then he left through the specially arranged trail. Just when leaving, no one noticed that there was an inexplicable smile on the corner of Roja's mouth. Doflamingo saw Roja's leaving back, glanced at the corner of his mouth, and said gloomily, "Damn guy, he is so arrogant. But so what, they are all giving me money anyway, fu. However, before Doflamingo could finish speaking, there was a huge commotion outside. "No, Marine rushed in. We're surrounded by Marines. Damn it, Marine, let's rush out together." Doflamingo immediately noticed the commotion caused in the auction house. But before he could say anything, several CP0s wearing white robes and masks arrived. They also know Doflamingo. After all, he was a former celestial dragon. As the lackeys of the Draco, they will not touch Doflamingo. But don't give Doflamingo too much respect. "Doflamingo, these Baileys are heavenly gold belonging to the celestial dragons. We are here to recycle them. Please cooperate with our work." Hearing CP0's words in front of him, Doflamingo's brows suddenly knitted together. "Are you kidding me? Is this actually heavenly gold? Does that mean I was tricked by that guy Zero?" Doflamingo said through gritted teeth. Just now, he was still laughing. Luya was just a stupid person with a lot of money, so he gave him money. But now it seems that I am obviously the stupidest one. But then, Doflamingo laughed loudly. Fu, this guy Zero actually dares to rob the gold from the sky, he really doesn't mind the trouble. Although Doflamingo, that's what he thinks. But he knew that with the CP0 in front of him, it was absolutely impossible to do anything to kill him. At this time, Roja controlled his clone Phantom, which was the Phantom acting as General White Pigeon, and came to Doflamingo. Beige Loya had a gentle smile on his face and said to Doflamingo, "Doflamingo, I will have all the money moved away." Just as the Zero left, another white dove came. Doflamingo only felt that God was deliberately targeting him. For this auction, he paid an unprecedented price. But even so, he was still plotted by Zero and White Pigeon. However, if Doflamingo were to know that Zero and Roja were actually the same person, he would be furious to death. In this auction, the biggest profiteer was Roja. Just as he came out of the special exit passage, he saw more than a dozen thugs in front of him. Among these thugs, there was someone particularly familiar to Roja. That's Tetsuro. That is, the owner of the golden fruit in the movie version of Golden City. I didn't expect the restorative properties of the original work to be so powerful. After all, he is still young and frivolous, and has too little experience. Tetsuro was very arrogant. He came to Roja and said to Roja, "Give me the golden fruit and I will spare you a way to live." Hearing Tetsuro's words, Roja felt very ridiculous. "Kuina." Quietly, Kuina called out. Kuina immediately knew what Roja meant. He pulled it out directly, and struck the thugs with a few slashes from his waist. How could these thugs resist such an attack? Lost his life by the way. Tetsuro responded well, obviously he had practiced. All kinds of reactions are pretty good, and he even learned the weapon color domineering. With his arms wrapped in armed colors, he rushed towards Roja. At the same time, he murmured to himself in his hands, "I must become a superior to others, and I will not let others look down on me. I must become a superior to others, superior to others." Hearing Tetsuro's words, Roja didn't care at all. There are too many people who want to become a master. For a blindly confident and arrogant person like you, the possibility of reincarnation is greater. As Roja's words fell, Roja's fingers gently moved down in the air. In an instant the storm surged. A sharp slash appeared out of thin air and cut Tetsuro in half. Watching in the movie version, Kamuy's man died in front of him. Luoya didn't feel anything in his heart, because they completely did not think of a way out for themselves. This is equivalent to a small episode. After passing over their bodies, Roya returned Kuina to the ship. Kuina, you go to the boat first. I have something else to deal with. Okay, master. Kuina knew that with her current level, she couldn't be of much help. Therefore, he nodded obediently. After sending Kuina back to Noah's Ark, and using the power of the spell to send it to the sky, Roha turned around and looked at General Baigu behind him. General White Pigeon is Roha's clone. In other words, one person is controlling, but they have two different identities. The most important reason why Luoya was able to manipulate Baiji's identity and catch up was the reason why Roha controlled the White Dove Phantom to meet him. The most important thing is that now Zero has made a lot of money. But Beige needs a greater reputation to consolidate his position. Increase your size when competing for Fleet Admiral in the future. And in this situation, isn't it the best way to increase one's fame? In other words, the entire Sabaody Islands are a stage for Roha alone. This time, Roha made a lot of money. Both identities have obtained what they need most. The White Dove Phantom holds a telephone bug in his hand, and he is in contact with the Warring States period at this time. Sengoku Fleet Admiral, I have pursued Zero. Sengoku frowned when he heard Shiragene's words. What about Kizaru and Akainu, those two guys? They were held back by at least 10 big pirates in the auction. They probably won't be able to escape for a while. At this point, Warring States had no choice but to hesitate and could only say to Baigu, Is it okay? Baigu! Don't worry, Sengoku Fleet Admiral. I won't fail. Feel the strong confidence of Beige. No matter how wary Warring States was about Baigu, at this moment, he couldn't help but said to Roha, Baigu, you are Marine's hero. With the voice of the Warring States period, it floated out from the phone bug. The battle is about to break out. The White Dove Phantom hung up, and the phone bug in his hand rushed directly towards the main body. It is said to be a battle, but in fact, for Roha, it is just controlling the Phantom to put on a good show. I saw the Phantom of the White Dove, under the control of Roha's body, coming to the front. Then, using finger guns and armed hockey, he launched a crazy attack. And Roha also displayed the perfect 8 gates Dunjia. Drive directly to the gate of death. In an instant, an astonishing hurricane was set off with the two of them at the center. Strong winds swept across the land. It stirred up countless dust. The earth-shattering sound of fist fights echoed throughout the island. This voice shocked everyone's hearts. Anyone who hears this voice feels disturbed. Hitora! Finger gun Huang Lian! Under Roha's control, the strength of the Phantom and the body remained evenly matched. The hands flashed continuously and struck out, forming countless afterimages. The two moves collide with each other. The air is being continuously compressed even at this time. The ground began to appear and cracked. Every exchange of moves looks very exaggerated. The sky is full of violent winds, like exploding thunder. With the two people, the power exerted gradually increased. The ground finally couldn't bear their crazy attack. The earth collapsed and seawater poured in. Roha even summoned Ryujin Jakka, combining the sword power of the Supreme Swordsman with the Peak Conqueror's Haki. Coupled with Ryujin Jakka's own power, an extremely terrifying slash was struck. Everything in the world is reduced to ashes, Ryujin Jakka. In an instant, a blazing flame slash appeared out of thin air. A large amount of heat was released, turning the air into illusion. The dazzling light is very dazzling even from 100 miles away. Along with the terrifying pressure, it directly shrouded the Sabaody Islands. As long as it is a person, it can clearly see those thousands of meters of slashes. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Kizaru and Akainu also stopped attacking at this time. The strong sense of crisis in their minds kept telling them to evacuate quickly. Even Kizaru and Akainu already thought so. Not to mention those big pirates and other minions. Under the pressure of this slash, their bodies seemed to be squeezed endlessly. The body is shaking. Everyone's faces suddenly turned pale. All over his body he couldn't move. The terrifying pressure and heat slowly descended on the island from the sky. Boom! 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 The earth began to tremble and shatter into countless pieces, and began to spread towards the auction. The ground along the way continued to collapse. Whether it was a pirate or a marine, they all fell crazily downwards. Some of the ones who reacted quickly had already taken advantage of the chaos and escaped. Long. Zero, that guy is so terrifying. Akainu. Damn it. He's gotten stronger again. Kizaru. It's so scary. It's so scary. Newspaper tycoon Morgans. The White Pigeon fought against the leader of the mysterious organization and destroyed the island. I can already predict the huge sales of the newspaper. When Stussy saw this scene in front of her, she felt even more at ease. The stronger Zero's power is, the more correct her decision will be. Because only in this way can she escape from CP0. However, there is not much time left for them to be surprised. Because the sea water poured in from outside at this time. Under the shock, huge waves set off. Like a tsunami, it began to quickly engulf Island Number 1 and the Sabaody Islands. A sword. Just one sword. The island is, whining, crazily under Roya's sword. Only after seeing this slash can they realize more deeply how insignificant they are. In front of Roja, they were as fragile as ants. Roja also took advantage of this slash to attract everyone's attention, and then made an exchange with Baigu. At this time, General Baiji's identity is his true body, while Zero is his phantom. There is no way, who makes the phantom unable to exert too much power of its own body. I don't know how long it took. Maybe it's a second, or maybe it's a minute. As the power of the slash gradually dissipated, the light gradually faded. From Island Number 1 of the Sabaody Islands, those who successfully escaped saw a doomsday-like scene. I saw that the originally extremely luxurious Island Number 1 of the Sabaody Archipelago was completely destroyed by Roya's slashing attack. Among them, the iconic building and the most sinful auction house also turned into ashes under Roya's attack. Doflamingo was filled with anger and looked at everything in front of him. Everything he had prepared since he was released from prison was reduced to ashes at this moment. And the bodyguard he invited, Han Pan, didn't know where he went at this time. The combination of various factors put Doflamingo on the verge of going berserk. This was the first time that he felt that the White Pigeon was so pleasing to the eye. Just listen to Doflamingo roaring. Baigu, teach me a lesson, that hateful guy. At this time, in front of Zero. It is the White Pigeon General Roya who has transformed into his true body. I saw Roja using the power of the phantom fruit to outline a Susanoo. The pure white Susanoo is covered with a large amount of peak conqueror's haki. Black and white, intertwined. Like yin and yang. Everyone was very shocked. Why could Roja easily resist such an exaggerated attack just now? The battle between the two people gradually entered a fever pitch. Although Luya switches his body back and forth, he still has a hearty feeling. At this time, Island Number 1 of the Sabaody Archipelago. All have been destroyed. A large amount of sea water has surged in from outside. The island was mercilessly submerged. In the sky, Zero and the White Dove faced each other under the gaze of everyone. Just when everyone was shocked at how Baigu blocked Zero's attack, the White Dove suddenly moved. Although Susanoo's appearance looks very huge. But the most important thing is the ability of the phantom fruit, so it is as light as nothing. Shave! Roja came to Zero, stretched out his hands symmetrically up and down, as if setting up a cannon. The highest secret of the 6 forms, the largest wheel, and the 6-ray gun. As Roya's words fell, a dazzling light condensed between Roya's hands. The huge power contained in the light. Everyone closed their eyes subconsciously. Then everyone was shocked, because they once again felt the power from this light, which was comparable to the previous slash. The power of the White Pigeon is actually as strong as Zero. This huge power is a bit too exaggerated. After this battle, White Pigeon's prestige will undergo earth-shaking changes. Everyone was whispering there. At this time, Kizaru and Akainu also wanted to go over and help Baigu. But as this power blossomed, they found that for a while, there was no chance to enter the battlefield. TSK. The air seems to be torn apart. Huge cracks also appeared in the sea. Even for a while, there was no way to repair it. Boom! The six-pointed gun blooms. In an instant, a strong storm arose. All of a sudden, the sun in the sky is not there. Dark clouds gathered, the thunder dragon roared, and in the blink of an eye, heavy rain fell from the sky. As the light gradually dissipated, Zero's figure was no longer in the sky. It seemed to disappear directly out of thin air. Seeing this scene in front of them, most of the people present were stunned for a moment. They did not expect that Zero would actually leave the island directly. But if Zero was afraid, they wouldn't think so. Because Zero's power has far exceeded their imagination. And also the white dove that intersects with it. In their opinion, the strength of the two people is definitely the one standing at the top of the pyramid. It's too scary! It's really too scary! Is this a battle between strong men? No! I'm afraid they haven't used all their strength. But even so, this kind of combat power is a bit too exaggerated. You must not mess with Beige and Zero. Facing the whispers around him, Roha didn't take it to heart at all. Anyway, it's just a show, a performance. Now that the performance is over, it can naturally begin. The white pigeon Roha, as the main body, raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Then he took out the phone bug in his arms and called Warring States. The moment the phone rang, Warring States picked it up. Baigu, how is the battle situation now? Warring States was very anxious in his heart. The investigators he sent have lost contact. The last information he got was that he used a slash to smash island number 1 of the Sabaody archipelago. That kind of terrifying strength made Warring States' heart suddenly tighten. Who knows, in this short time, how desperate the Warring States period was. He was even prepared for failure of the mission. Hearing Sengoku's anxious words, Roha said calmly, Zero, disappear. Island number 1 of the Sabaody archipelago is broken. As Roha's words fell, Warring States' heart instantly calmed down. Did Zero escape? Was he injured? According to my feeling, the probability of injury is basically 0. These two identities are all Roha's own. So there won't be any mutual disparagement. After hearing Roha's words, the Warring States' side suddenly fell silent. An island in the Sabaody Islands was sunk. Even so, either was seriously injured. No matter how you think about it, I feel that the power of these two people is really exaggerated. I understand, Beige. Thank you for your hard work this time. I will report your matter to the 5 elders truthfully. The remaining finishing work will be left to Kizaru and Akainu. I understand, Lord Fleet Admiral. After saying this, Baigu hung up the phone bug directly. Then used Moonwalk directly to leave island number 1, which is already full of sea water. Disappeared from everyone's sight. As for Kizaru and Akainu, after receiving the news from the Warring States period, they began to clean up the follow-up matters. The figures of Doflamingo and others left and disappeared without knowing when. And Luoya also came to Aunt Xiao's rip-off tavern. I saw Rayleigh at the door, drinking a small drink, as if waiting for the white dove. General Baigu, you are finally here. You really made me wait, Rayleigh said, taking a sip of wine into his own mouth. At the same time, he slowly stood up. I saw that sitting under Rayleigh's but was Drought Jack. Rayleigh, I really want to trouble you this time. I want you, an old man, to take action, Roya said calmly to Rayleigh. Rayleigh waved her hand casually, showing that she didn't care at all. This is a small matter. It just happened that I haven't exercised for a long time, so I just want to do some exercise. Are you sure you want to do this? Rayleigh put away the smile on her face and looked at Roha with extremely serious eyes. He only took action after hearing about Roha's idea. Otherwise, he would not appear on the first level of the auction. The purpose was to drag Drought Jack away directly after the auction ended, and when the war began, and then secretly take him out. Of course, besides, isn't this a win-win situation? Rayleigh stopped talking. It is conceivable that if Drought Jack is handed over to Roja, then 4 Emperors Kaido will definitely be furious. According to Kaido's character, he will definitely cause a scene in Malinfando. By then, the strength on the sea will be even more chaotic. It is said that in troubled times heroes emerge. I think it will inspire more ambitious and powerful people. With the constant infusion of fresh blood from pirates, it will become easier to see the scene that Roger wants to see. However, there is a very unstable factor in this. That is the White Dove General in front of us, Roja. Rayleigh, not only Roger wants to change the world, I also want to change the world, but in different ways. The world belongs to young people, and the older generation should step aside. A pun. After hearing this sentence, Rayleigh frowned.